store for retail parking, the parking lot footprints will probably be sold off for further development. And that's going to put yet another traffic load on the roadways, the police department, the fire department, and other things that are associated with community living and activity. And you need to be, in my estimation, you need to be very, very cautious and careful about what you're planning on allowing for that area of Syracuse. Because it can be nothing but a shot in the foot in terms of the forward progress of the city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else?
Mayor, members of the council, city staff, my name is Ralph Watt. I live in the Canterbury North area of Syracuse. This particular council has an advantage that no other city council has ever had in the city. We send out a publication once a month to every household in Syracuse. It's a fabulous magazine. We've all seen the Syracuse Connection. What a grand opportunity that is for us to take over one page, one side of one sheet of paper for the next several issues of that thing, and send a survey out to everybody in Syracuse, asking them how they feel. Now, in the meetings that have been held, we've only had a maximum of about 60 people show up for that. We have 10 or 12 people show up for the planning commission. We only have this many show up for a city council meeting. But with the publication we have, the Syracuse Connection, we have the opportunity to get into everybody's house and give everybody the opportunity to make a comment. Even if it was just half a sheet, there would be plenty of room for 6 questions. The same questions that we've asked already in public in these small focus groups that we've had here. Ask everybody. And not everybody can make it on a Tuesday. Not everybody can make it on a Thursday. Heck, we have trouble getting people out for important things. But I think this is the golden opportunity that you have to be able to talk to everybody. And if anybody has any opinion whatsoever, give them the opportunity to cut out that half a page and either send it to you in the mail, stuff it inside the bill envelope, or send it to us online. It can't be copied because we print it and we send it out so we know what the backside should look like. If anybody wants to go to that trouble, but I don't think anybody's going to stuff a ballot box on something like that. But I think this is a fabulous opportunity that we have, and if you pass it by, you will have lost a golden opportunity to have everybody have the opportunity to contribute. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council.
Thank you. One comment.
I can't.
Yes, one comment, 1 minute.
All I would like to say is I like his idea, and I don't know under Robert's law, but can we recommend that?
No.
We don't want to.
You can ask the council, but that, any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public comment period again. We'll offer that again later in the meeting. Item number C, review of cemetery maintenance regulations. Cresta, is that you?
Yep.
All right, guys.
This is still your seat.
That's all right. Sorry. You're good. I'll move.
You're fine.
Okay, so did you guys read over that?
I can bring this
Yes.
forward and just say, I have 2 concerns that I had when we first reviewed this, and they kind of remain. One is that I think that we are probably cleaning off arrangements too quickly. A flower arrangement usually lasts more than a day, so if we're doing it the Monday after the Memorial Day weekend, that seems pretty quick.
So we're in the ordinance, it states that we're cleaning, we do 3 major cleanings.
I know, but we've scheduled them right after the time that people bring flowers.
So they bring it the Monday and then the following Monday.
So it's a week.
Oh,
It's
so
a week, it's not the Monday.
It's not the day.
No,
Okay.
it's the following Monday.
All right, well, the other thing is that when people bring artificial arrangements, they
Mhm.
usually last longer. than a week. And maybe we ought to give some consideration to letting those stay longer than a week.
So the thing with the ordinance is that the reason why we tell them that is if they will come and remove that, they only have to remove it for that day so that we can go through and do a complete cleaning, and then they can bring those back and we don't bother those. It's just so that we can go through and get a complete clean. Because what you guys don't understand is that just like with April 1st, from November 1st when we do that cleaning clear till April, there's some people that never come back to the cemetery
Yeah.
and clean those up. And there's a lot of time that there's mold and other things that are left in those. So if you don't take those, how do we pick and choose what we take and what we don't take?
So-
That's the problem that we have.
To add to that, so right after April 1st, for example,
April 2nd, they can
Oh.
bring it back.
yeah, and we actually had a youth group come in and scrub every single headstone,
Mhm.
and if they'd all been just completely covered, it wouldn't be able to get all that done. So I actually am in favor of having specific days where they at least have to remove them, and then so they can do a thorough cleaning and make sure our graveyard is taken care of properly, and not have to mow around all these things. And then they can bring them back the next day. I'm actually in favor of this because it makes our Memorial Park a suitable place for a good resting place for these people. If we're trying to do a hodgepodge around all of this stuff, I just don't think it would be as nice of a facility.
So this is different. From what I'm understanding, I don't have any problem with what we have, but it looks like somebody's had a different experience. So let me just read a portion of this letter. I saw the signs didn't remove those things that are part of her stone. I had a new set of artificial flowers in the area set in the concrete stone. Nothing was on the mow strip and everything was taken from the grave. So is that,
So on the 3 days, there's only 3 days. April
So-
1st,
so we need everything.
everything is to
off
be
of
removed because,
graves.
so just those 3 days,
Okay.
April 1st, the Monday after Memorial Day, and November 1st. It is a complete cleanup, and that's what those
Okay.
signs say in the cemetery. Complete cleanup. Anything that you don't want removed and taken, and we're not the only cemetery. Every cemetery, most cemeteries, I shouldn't say every, but most cemeteries do
So
this.
this was a different.
This is a different
this is a n-
circumstance.
And this is a new thing that started
No.
last year?
No, it's always been in the
Oh,
ordinance, we're just
okay.
starting to enforce it,
Implement-
because
okay.
part of the problem was is it wasn't enforced for so many years, and then when we started enforcing it, that's where it became an issue. And so we feel like if we continue to do it,
Then
that people are gonna
they'll
understand that this is when it's gonna happen, and so they'll know to come and remove it. And so
And what do we do with the items?
we get rid of them.
Okay, they're gone.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So I agree with the ordinance and the enforcement of it, and I think it's exactly what you said, that it's just newly being enforced more regularly, and so that's causing heartburn. And I can totally
That's
understand the people that have called us or emailed us,
Right.
them being frustrated.
Yeah.
But
But
we have signs up in there, right?
Mhm.
And we have, I think it's just a learning process over the next few times.
But my heart goes out to the people that
Oh,
lost
yeah.
their angels.
Mine as
Absolutely,
well,
yeah.
and I think that it's really important to recognize that because personally, this is not my grieving process. I don't spend a lot of time in cemeteries, so it's not my issue. But I'm very sensitive to those who do grieve in this way, who spend time and I just want to be careful that we're not encroaching on their right to process as they need to process. I think that we have to deal with cleanup. I understand that. But I don't mind having this review because
Really,
this
are
is
they
sensitive to these
notified?
people.
Are
Yeah,
they notified
there's a
when there's
letter
a
sent
burial
out.
that occurs, a new burial?
So
Who
when they
knows?
come in and they get when they buy a plot, they're given a pamphlet.
Okay.
But when this new ordinance, when we had this discussion 6 months ago, when they updated all the ordinances again, we sent out a new pamphlet to everybody that we could. And then again, we put it on social media. And then we have also put signs in the cemetery. We've updated the directory. So we've done everything that we can think of to notify everybody that we're going to do this. We've kept the signs up because of Memorial Day is gonna be coming again, and this became the first issue, was last Memorial Day. That's when we did a really good thorough cleanup, so.
Can you tell
Corinne?
me how long it's been going on? I'm
Quick
sorry, just-
question.
Yes, Corinne.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question about, I totally agree with this ordinance and about the learning process. When we do get a complaint like what we received, did anyone contact him specifically back? I mean, because
I
he came to
replied.
us in the meeting.
I replied,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he came in and spoke to Tess
Okay.
at the community center. And most of the people that have contacted you have contacted the community center, and it's been explained to them in the ordinance, and they have the ordinance. They don't
Okay.
like the ordinance.
And how long has the ordinance been in place that
That,
it's been this
that
specific?
one has been, that has always been the ordinance that we would have the 3 cleanups.
Okay.
We are just
Okay.
enforcing it.
But we did
And I don't
just
know if you
recently
changed any
review it
wording in
because
that.
things had gotten so
In that
elaborate
one we
that it was
hadn't-
hard to maintain watering and management of cutting the grass even because things had gotten way beyond the headstone area.
So we've
Council?
gotten
Thank
stricter,
you.
but that actual ordinance of the 3 has not been changed.
We'll just say
Council?
decades.
Council, in the economy of time, let's just give Krista some direction. Are you happy with the ordinance? Yeah,
Yes.
let's up or down?
Yes.
Yeah.
Happy with the
Yes.
ordinance.
I think
Thanks
we'll
for
we'll
the
continue to try and
clarity.
educate, and I think this will become,
Well known.
yeah, the impact will be lessened over time.
Doug?
Yeah, I agree.
Dave? Okay, all right, let's move on.
Thank you,
Chris.
Thank you.
Not to
We're at
change
item
the
D.
minute or later.
It's a park and rec show tonight.
Sweet.
It is.
Paul, you've got this one?
Sure, I can lead the session.
That helps.
So this is a memorandum of agreement that the police department will be, or is being asked to enter into with the state. And one part of it is they need to make sure that the council approves of us participating in the program. So the main question is, are you okay with the city continuing in this program where we're able to get access to equipment from military sources for police use? And if you are, then
Yes.
we'll go forward with a resolution next time on the consent
We
agenda.
already have, right? This is almost a formality.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure, I don't know if anyone here has been asked that before, so I wanted to make sure that we're still okay with it.
Yes.
Can we put this on a consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Cassie, would you put that on the
I
consent
did read
agenda
that
for the next
Syracuse
business
has
meeting?
nine salt pickles.
We're at item E, 2019 through 2020 interlocal corporation agreement with Davis County Sheriff Office for dispatch services. Brody, are you in the best position to discuss this one?
Sure, yep. So, this is an annual agreement we have with the county. One thing that's not in the cover memo is the price difference from, the current year. It's about, $4,500 more. It's a calculation based on.
Total, not per officer.
Total.
Total, okay.
Yeah,
It's
total,
just the
annual
dispatch, right?
cost.
Yeah, it's just,
And
it's
it's
still
a fixed
expensive.
calculation they do every year based on number of calls and number of officers.
I still think this is kind of expensive, but we don't really have another option.
Well, so one thing I would like to do is I'm okay with the agreement, but I really do think we need to push on the Davis County Sheriff to consolidate their dispatch centers. Right now, it's very inefficient having 3 different dispatch centers trying to manage all these different things, and they get routed back and forth between them. And I just think there's some efficiencies that could be had. But I brought this up with the Davis County Sheriff's Office. It's not something we can fix here. We just need to keep talking with them and help them to understand
The
that.
power to do that is the county commission. And I spoke with a county commissioner who said he would like to take this on as
I've
one of
talked
the
to him
early
too.
things. So I
Me as
hope that
well.
they do, but we don't have the power as a city to do that individually.
Agree, but I think if we need to keep pushing on that, because I think if they could consolidate and make their processes more efficient, I think it would actually help them a lot.
So this is one for the mayor to take to COG.
It's already on a COG future agenda, so
Okay.
it's
Good.
there.
And also the word that I received from the county commissioner I spoke to, they said that they are actively
Yes.
trying to work at this.
Yep, they're working through the details of it. It'll be on a COG agenda.
Okay.
Right.
So in the meantime, we have no other option but to go with what is available.
Agree.
Consent agenda?
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Krista, you're back in the hot seat.
You should have just stayed up here.
I know, I should have. It really is the park and rec show, so.
I know.
Get used to me and
It
Chad
is
for the next little
not
bit.
typically that way, so enjoy your time in the spotlight.
You know me, I hate to be in the spotlight. All right, so the first one up, is the
And you broke.
athletic field usage policy. So the mayor asked us to put together a field usage policy. As you guys know, we always have groups coming in that want to rent our field space. And we haven't had an actual field usage policy in the past. We've just done our $15 an hour. And they usually come into the council and want fees waived and other things. And so I don't know if you guys had a chance to look over the field usage policy, and if you guys have questions or what you thought of it.
I think first, before we deal with the specific policy, the question that we have to go over is, are we gonna finally hold to a policy? Because if we're not, there's no sense discussing it. Because for the last 2 years in a row that I've been here, we had a policy, and as soon as somebody came in and said, hey, that's too much money, we ended up veering off from the policy. So are we going to hold a policy?
Well, we had a fee.
Which we waived.
Yeah. So,
2 years in a row.
so I get your question, because is this gonna be more powerful than just the fee, standalone fee?
Well, we have a few things in here that we want to go over with you guys and make sure, and that's what we want for you guys to commit to. If you guys, whatever it is, if you guys, like Dave said, if you guys don't want to commit and you say, this doesn't sound good to us and we're not going to be able to commit to it and hold to it, because it's really hard for us to propose something to these groups and then come here and you guys are like, well, okay.
And it's kind of a waste of time.
It is.
Even beyond the usage fees, I feel like it addresses some of the other issues, and even more than that I've heard you guys talk about over the years, the care and renovation of the fields and so forth. So
what do you see being the biggest issues that we're going to have people that, just as you've said, there have been fees that have not set well with people?
You're going to have organizations approach you asking to speak on their behalf.
I would say that to sum it up, it really comes down to, we are in an era where the city is not the only game in town for running programs. There are comp leagues everywhere. So these comp leagues expect that the city is going to provide space for them, but they don't think that, they think that that's covered in their taxes and that we don't have an obligation for other things which we do. So that's the issue. Every year they think that they should get precedent over what else happens here and that there should be no charge. But the charge that we have to maintain these fields. We have to take care of them. So there's a cost for that. So if it's not a city-run program, then that cost has to be borne by the group who is using the space. That's why we came up with something similar to this. The question is, will we hold to it? Or will we say, gee, we don't want to, because they will say things like, you're running us out of the city. Well, we're not running you out of the city, but you do have to pay for the usage of space, just like we rent pavilions to family reunions. We rent everything that is a non-city function. It's part of it.
So this policy doesn't preclude somebody from still coming and doing that?
No, they can't.
Yeah.
They do. It just, are we going to stand by it and actually charge the fee that's in the policy?
Well, if we're going to, I think we ought to include that in the policy.
Well, I think that's
the council doesn't go back and look at every single situation.
Fee schedule
I think
is
that's not a
outlined
bad
in the
idea.
thing.
Yeah, the biggest thing between the current reservation policy or usage that we have now versus what we're proposing to is, the ability to have a large amount of reservations or, and then with the ability to get some kind of a discounted rate, where before it was just one rate, and then they brought it to you guys to see whether or not there was.
So the simple thing would be just to give you guys power to accept or reject a proposal based on its merit without having to come to the council.
Well, and it has to be to the council too. What do you guys want to get out of this? Like Chad and I've talked about this a lot. You
We
want
just
to break
want to
even?
cover the fees, break even.
Cost recovery, right?
The cost recovery, the city is not in the business of making money off this kind of thing. At least that's been our point in the past with this group, is we just want to break even. We don't want to incur additional costs because we can't bear that as a city, but if we break even, we're fine. Now, to that extent, I'm wondering, I thought about this after I read through it a couple of times. I'm wondering if we ought not simplify this, and instead of breaking out the multi-use versus the baseball fields, and I do realize there's a difference, maybe we ought to have one rate for field use, one rate for field prep. Let's not make such a variety. I do get the different categories of parks because the facilities are different.
Okay, so you don't think of doing, you're not saying, you say keep the category 1, category 2, and category 3.
But
Does
not the
everybody
different
understand what the
types of
category
fields.
1, category 2, and category
So-
3 are?
Yeah, more, yeah.
We tried to, I tried to explain that in there.
So one thing I'd recommend on
Chad and I
your
did.
category 1, 2, and 3, you
Mhm.
didn't label category 2. I assuming it's practice fields later on.
I think I thought I did.
So on category 1 it says
Tournament
tournament
level
level
field.
field. Category 2 just says can be used either practice
Well,
or games.
Well,
Right.
there's specific parks named on the next page of
Right.
Appendix B.
Right, so tournament level is like our founders, like,
Mhm.
we're only gonna put your,
Sure.
obviously, it's like our founders park and your Rock Creek East Park.
Right.
And the category 2 fields are not prepped at play,
Okay.
so there's a difference
You can
in
do either or
turf prep.
Maybe
games.
just say practice or
So-
field.
One is for games and one is for practice.
Okay, that's kind of what I figured. On one thing, I guess I'll get to this in a minute. Let's continue with this, and I'll talk to you about which parks are included in each of them because I think you're missing a few.
Okay.
So the first question is, is there a reason we have a different field rental? I mean, I know the reason is that we think that we don't have to prep the one field as often as we do the others, but the usage and the maintenance annually,
It's all
Let me,
general.
Kind of comes out
let me
to be
have
what?
Chad explain to you why we have a category 1, 2, and 3, because there is a huge difference of what we put into those
Okay, we
categories.
got 2 questions going.
Oh, sorry.
I keep going back to the cost, and then
Well-
we'll go to the category.
Well, that's
Can we do
because the
that?
cost is different. The reason why we have a category 1 and 2 and 3 is because of the cost.
I
Yes,
think Dave's okay
I'm
with
talking-
the
I'm okay
categories,
with
but
that.
he's looking down the
I'm
column
looking
Okay.
for
at
usage.
baseball multi-field use. Why is there a difference?
Because of the cost that you put into it.
And I'm saying that I think
And you're saying
that-
you don't care, you think that it's
I
about
think
the
it's
same?
it's close enough that we ought to have one. So if you rent a field, you rent a field, no matter what kind of field it is, because the cost is close. It's not that much different. So why have, why make it harder to understand the table? Simplify the table, make it one cost. Whether we go up or down is not the issue. Make it one cost for a field. Make it one cost for field prep, and then we go from there. Everything is did you use a field? Yes. Did you use 2 fields? Yes. That's the cost. If you want to go for for season rental, give a discount, fine with that too. I'm fine with the different categories. I totally understand and agree with that. Jordan would like to talk about which one should be on which, but that's okay. But the
Thank
question is
you.
first, can we have one?
Yeah, I mean, that's more up to you guys, but I actually think it's worth splitting out because it seems to me, my experience, like it takes a lot more work and product to prepare a total
turf.
dirt infield than a turf.
And they're saying it's the opposite, and I'm worried that maybe we ought to be putting more into our.
Corinne,
Right, according to
Corinne, do you
prices, it
want
would
to
be-
chime in here? Let me see your.
Your eyebrows are furrowed.
Are you hearing us, Corinne?
No. Okay, so.
Chad, do you want to go into the
I mean,
difference?
I mean,
a little bit?
really, as far as when you're getting to as far as the fee is the preparation side, yeah, there might be more involved. As far as the management side, when it comes to after the fact of the repair,
Right.
you're still gonna try to do the same management practices for a baseball where you're gonna do the grass, because that's where most of the repair is gonna be coming in as is really your grass areas.
Okay.
And because you're going to be doing the preparation with baseball fields, constantly, if that's going to be, asked upon the reservation. So you're going to be doing that anyways. So it really does come down to the management aspect after the fact to
Okay.
try to recoup and
That makes
repair.
sense.
I'm willing to defer to you guys. If you guys want it in 3
Facility.
different categories, it's up to. Because this is where you guys shine. You guys know
I would
what you're
prefer
asking.
one too, just from just housekeeping
Yeah.
effect from in the office when we're trying to explain it. or fees within our software.
The reason why we set it up this way is we benchmarked other cities and they separated. So when we come to you guys, a lot of times you'll ask us about benchmarking and how we've done it,
Let's
how
go
other
with
cities
one.
done it.
Let's make it easier for management. Let's make it one fee.
I'm okay with that
Are you
because
guys
they're
all
not,
good with one
I mean,
fee?
it's 25, 25, and 20.
Yeah, and to me, I kind of also think that
Just do
maybe
it
we
within
should
the
just go
25.
for the 25 because if there's just a little bit more revenue for us to work with, we're probably going to put it into infield maintenance anyway. We know
Yeah.
that. We probably skimp on that because of our overall budget is so lacking.
Corinne, are you back with us?
Yes, I've been here the whole time. We had an audio
Okay.
problem for just a minute, but I figured out I pressed the wrong button.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
We're at a point, Corinne, where Dave has suggested simplification of the fee schedule down to one. Doug
Yeah,
and,
my-
yes,
25 now.
Just a quick clarification, because, with that, where they have it split into 3 categories, and I do see the idea that $25 per is very similar to versus 20. The only thing is that on category 3, it's only $15 versus 25. So I'm kind of,
Because if you look
If
at the
we're-
first one, it's not available in category 2 or 3 anyway. So rather than going down, we don't have anything in that area. It's not available.
but in multi-sport fields rental, the question for me is just if we're just trying to break even or whatever we're trying to do, that is quite a difference on that one. So I don't know.
All I'm
Just a thought.
suggesting is that the first 2 line items in category 1 be the same.
So you're saying
That's
take out
it.
baseball and then it's all
That's
full-time?
it.
All field rental.
All field
Thank you.
rental.
I see, just combining the
Just
first
for
two,
category
you still
one?
have the field prep.
Yep. Everything's
Okay.
the same except for the first 2 are 1 line instead of 2.
And then if you
That's
want
fine.
lights or scoreboard, you still have a fee.
You still pay for those, yep.
But then
There's
category
separate.
2 would be the $20,
Yep.
category 3 would be
Still.
15.
But there are no category 2 ball
For
fields, 'cause we
No,
don't have them.
no, right.
That
Okay,
makes
that makes a
sense.
lot more sense.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying, Dave.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
Are you guys good with the weekend field prep and that kind of stuff, or you just
I
want
am.
one field prep?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So talk about your point.
So
Doug.
why are we not listing among the category 3 parks the Canterbury North? Why don't we program Canterbury North? I know it's smaller, but it's big enough for a little league soccer game.
Because it
Have you
is,
seen the grading there?
yeah, it's not safe.
It's not
Like
safe.
it doesn't drain, so.
For us, when we look at it, we're looking at it on a liability issue for the
Okay.
city. And so when we want to program something, we want to make sure that it's safe. Somebody wants to go out there and play,
The other,
but we're not going to program.
What's the other one that we have that's
If
over
we want
an
to,
acre?
if we want to put money into it and regrade it so that it's playable, we would do that. But we're gonna put money in it to
that
make
would
it,
be
and it's
money in a detention basin.
Well, I was gonna say,
I know.
is it large enough that it would be helpful to have the money go
There's
into
not
that? It sounds like
parking.
no.
There's
Okay.
not parking. I mean, what it would be
Use the
helpful
church
for.
parking.
Yeah, what it would be helpful for is people that wanted to like
One team
practice comp teams and stuff like that want to practice in it and do things.
Yeah, and
Which they do now. It's just not like one time we asked the lacrosse. We said you can go ahead and practice there. They went and looked at it. and was like, no way, because it's just
But
it's not safe.
I think it's an option. But if you're saying it's not even, what's our other one? We have one more 1 acre detention basin.
Monterey.
No, that's
It's
up
not
by
named.
1475.
1475.
It's got a big, I don't even know what it's called,
There's
like a
a-
culvert.
Like culvert.
Culvert
yeah,
in the middle of
Right
it.
through the middle.
Okay.
So it's not
All right.
something you could
I was
play
just
in it.
curious if there was a way to get some more parks on here, just because I know we are very space limited.
Yeah, so that's we don't program in North Canterbury. There's people that will. I know the church uses it a lot, and people will go in and play pickup and stuff on it, but we just don't program because it's not.
Okay.
My daughter's team used it for soccer practice for quite a while because there just wasn't anything else available.
Because I mean,
Hard to say that it's always available too.
Yeah.
So I'm saying if-
Council, I'm gonna suspend discussion on this at 6:55, just to give you some economy of
Okay.
time, we've got a lot to do.
If there's that many people using it, I would just say I would allow it to be at least somewhat programmable based on conditions.
Well, the question would be liability. If we rent it and it's not really safe, I mean, if you go on your own and use it and then you come back and say, well, it wasn't safe, that's why we didn't rent it. But if we let you pay money for it and then we didn't make it safe,
It's
we're
like-
now
There's an
liable.
expectation.
It's like getting whiplash when you go mow it, right, Chad?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm okay when we look at one of our next items, and we count that as open space, and we count it as park
Right.
space, but programming it, I think is
Yeah.
probably.
Okay.
I mean, at a time when we have extra money, it would be nice to go and be able to regrade that and do that. It would be.
We almost need a sign that says use at your own risk.
Okay. All right.
So-
Thank you.
So the other question
Answered
then
my
is do we want to say that these fees can be changed, waived by either us or you guys, or not say anything at all?
And do you like the after the 10 hours of field rentals?
I do
There
like
was
that,
suggestions
so that
of
we
more.
have long time. The other one that I suggested, and Krista actually ran some numbers to see if this would be viable, but the question would be after 40 hours, if we gave an additional discount. That's for longer seasons that we're not making them pay as much overall because of the long-term commitment. And maybe that cuts a break of what we would be, similar to what we would do when these teams, comp teams come in and say, we need it for a long period of time, we just can't afford that much. That was my
But
only
you're
other
cutting it.
suggestion.
If that
I mean, you're
covers
cutting
our
it.
costs, I'm okay.
I don't know that it would.
Yeah, the fundamental thing
After
is
40
it has to
hours.
pay for itself. We're not willing
You're
to
right.
operate at a loss to accommodate a specific comp
We'd
team.
have to sit down and
So
make
that's
sure.
the only question I have that we have to come back to is, if after 40 hours, we've put enough money into the field that it doesn't cost us as much to upkeep it, I would consider that.
It would go down to 15 an hour for category 1, 10 for category 2, and 8 for category 3.
Yeah.
I don't think we should ever go
No,
lower
I
than 8.
agree with you. I agree with you there, but if that's functioning, I'm considerate, but we don't have to either. I'm looking for ways to make this a policy that can just be enforced and we do not have to take requests. Because everybody thinks everything's too high. That's just,
I mean, we'd appreciate it that we wouldn't have to, you wouldn't have to come back and we could just say, this is the fee if you want to rent the space.
I want to say that,
save you
and I don't
time.
know that it has to be set in the policy. Maybe it's just a unwritten rule. But if you feel better about it being in there, I'm okay with that too.
I don't think it has to be in the policy either, but I agree with Doug. Maybe we just say,
If it's not in the policy,
have
if
to
they
maintain
request
our
to come to the
fields.
council, can't they come to the
They have
council?
to.
They can come to public comment, but you don't have to put them on an agenda.
Okay.
So, if you're saying we're not gonna have to give you special time, that you can come and just bring something up like everyone else.
Or is it if you put that and we say, this is as low as the council is going to go?
Corinne?
No, I agree that is, we could always have a statement, but I think that discretion should be allowed. This one's a hard one.
So,
There's a statement of how low we can go, yeah.
Brody?
yeah, I would say unless there's a specific situation that you know of ahead of time where you would give a break, I wouldn't, on something like fees, I wouldn't give staff discretion to that.
Okay.
I think that's purview of the council. If you want to waive a fee, you can do that. And so if there is a situation, say for example, if you have like a nonprofit or charitable nonprofit or something, you can write in the policy that, you'll give a 50% discount or, something like that you can sort of legislate into the rule ahead of time, and then the staff can, administer that.
something like that is usually a shorter rental. We're really talking about giving a break to longer
Yeah.
term rentals, so I'm not sure it applies, but that's a good point.
Yeah.
And we ought to have something in there for a quid pro quo type piece of whatever they're doing. If they're going to do something in the park as a service or something like that, I think that would warrant some consideration.
Krista?
Yeah,
You need to speak to that.
what was that,
We've
sorry?
done that before. Has that
we were
worked,
doing
Krista, or
numbers.
is that just more problems?
The,
Quid
Well,
pro
Jordan,
quo
right.
that
tell
she's
again.
suggesting. Is that just
Is
been
it-
more of a
it's,
problem?
it feel,
We don't
it's
get
more of
much
a
out of
problem
it.
because we're having to try to find, work for them to do. And when it's a big, huge group of 150 to 200 kids that can only do it at certain times,
Right.
and then we're having to bring in our staff after hours to have them do
support their-
some, because one time we wanted to do lay sod, but to do that, it would have been during the day, and our staff we had to get it laid, so we ended up having to do it. So it becomes problematic.
Okay.
I'm gonna suspend discussion on this. Cresta, do
Would
you
you
have
agree with
enough
that?
information that you could bring something back to a business meeting that we could then approve?
Yeah, absolutely, and then we'll run the numbers on the 40 hours, we were just doing that, and
If
let
it
you guys
doesn't
know.
work, it doesn't work, and
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Well, we can let you know with this past experience with the youth lacrosse,
We
of what those
just wanna
numbers
bring
would be,
you
so
in.
that you guys could kind of see what that would be.
Thank you, Cresta. Let's move on to the interactive water feature.
Okay,
The IFW.
let's.
The island, we've given it a name,
The island?
the island.
The island.
The island.
Can you guys remind me what that stands for?
Let's not give it an acronym. It was interactive.
I don't even know, that's Jordan's thing, and he'll have
Splash.
to do it, cause I don't even know what it is.
All
Let-
ability, or,
Let's not call it an acronym. Let's just call it the island.
That's good.
Okay, alright, fair.
we
So,
named it.
you guys have that in front of you. These are just some rules and regulations that we put together. We gathered a whole bunch of different rules that other people had for their splash pad and interactive water features. And I'm trying to pull it up, and mine's not coming yet.
This
but-
kind of made my stomach churn a little bit as you think about them, but.
And so these two, the way
Diarrhea,
that we
nausea.
put them on, would be signs that actually would be posted, in the splash pad.
So I mean, I'm totally okay with the first set of rules. I understand they need to be,
The ones that are in yellow have to be there.
Okay,
yeah.
so, but I need some clarity, was it drink
I hope
glass,
so.
or drink, and glass?
And
There's-
there was a couple I have to tell you.
Yeah, I think you need a comma
Let me
after
look.
drink.
There was a comma missing.
You guys, please, let's see, no drink, no food, drink,
Just a comma.
comma, glass or pets are allowed
Lisa, no
on or
drinking
around the
glass.
interactive water
That's what I
feature.
was like, are we saying it's okay to have plastic bottles?
No.
Or, okay.
There's
'Cause
no
someone would
glass,
say,
they
well,
don't want you
there's no
to,
glass.
they don't
Okay.
want you to be able to,
Okay.
Okay,
break glass
so
in there.
let's talk about pets, because you know people are going to do that.
That
It won't
is,
be
that, I mean,
allowed.
this is
That's
from,
bad.
this is
People
from
like
the
that.
health department.
I'm okay, I'm bringing it up for discussion. You know we're gonna
Where
get
the state
pushback
has
on
to
it.
regulate the water, that has to be a no pets allowed.
Well, and they don't want them running in the water or doing things in the water.
I agree.
So-
So what is the penalty if that happens? I see a penalty later for other things that, and I have a
Good
question about
question.
that, but what is the penalty from the health department?
They could shut us down.
Well, they could shut us down.
So it's a penalty.
It's a penalty for the
Us.
city,
And,
not for
and I
them.
know that Chad and a couple of our guys are going to get trained tomorrow for, on the chemicals and stuff. It's just like a pool, if things get in the water, you shut the splash pad down. It gets completely shut down, and so,
Okay, so I'm okay with this. How do we express this in a way that we don't get a lot of pushback for people that say, oh, my pet likes to run through the sprinklers and he's just fine?
Say we have lots of parks with sprinklers.
And this is a
You can
public,
explain that,
it's,
I'm
it's health
asking,
department.
this is gonna come up,
It's treated water,
okay?
it's treated water, and the health department will shut us down.
Do we
and
have
it's for
signage?
children.
This is gonna be science.
Corinne,
These-
you,
just explain that you can't control when your dog is going to use the facilities, if you will.
And these are
That's gonna
these
be
have to
good.
be posted at every splash pad. So I went up and, this is at the,
Again, I'm just trying to make sure we have our ducks in a row because it's gonna be asked. And so if the
No ducks
response
here.
is that the health department does not allow this, that's a very, that's a very
Easy
direct
one.
and easy to, that the health department has dictated to stay open, we have to abide by this rule. I'm okay with that. But I wanna make sure that we have those answers, because if we don't, and somebody says, well, one person told me this, another person told me that, and there's really no reason for you
Do
to
you wanna
have this
put
rule.
per health department regulations, the following?
No, I'm just making sure we're all, different ones of us are gonna get asked many times. We have to have the.
Yeah.
No, I do
And as
wanna
long as they're
reference
on
the
the,
health department.
and as long
Yeah.
as they're
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
a leash, they can still be in the park. They just can't be in the actual
Water
water,
area.
in the water feature area. They can be on the grass and
Yeah.
stuff. They can't be in the water feature area.
What about in the concrete area?
Yeah, you're gonna have to define the parameters.
No,
And
because
that's
it
what I
drains
think-
It can't be-
downhill.
Yeah, I just think that they cannot be in the.
In which case I say inside the active.
Interactive water.
Active area.
Yeah.
It says it says allowed on or around the interactive water feature.
Okay, I think that covers it. I think it's good.
Okay, so
I
let's.
do like the suggestion of putting on there about the state health department or
Yes.
county health department requires these things. This isn't like the
Yeah.
city coming up with crazy rules. I don't mind putting that out there. People might be more
Okay.
obedient
I-
to that.
What about a dog using the grass to do its thing, and children barefooted
Are
out
they
in
gonna
that
run through
grass and
there?
then into the pool?
Right.
I feel
well.
like pets should, can we prohibit all pets
I think
from
they
that
ought to be
area?
gone.
I think that should just, it would save
That
a
park
dog from running
Period,
free.
the park, the
Yeah.
entirety.
I
It's-
don't think
it's-
that will,
Well, that
I don't
won't
think
fly.
that's gonna
People
fly.
especially
walk
where
their
it's a
dog
special
Is it-
abilities
is
park.
it-
around
That's
that
true.
park.
And-
Oh,
Okay,
There's a question for legal. What if somebody says this is my assistance animal or comfort pet?
We have to have enforcement somewhere.
Yeah, we'll make accommodations when we can, but when it comes to, health violations, even ADA doesn't override those, so.
Okay.
We have to look at the,
Okay.
double check, but yeah, that's not gonna override it.
Needed to be asked.
there are a few, grammatical errors. Do you
Yeah.
want to, does that?
Oh
matter?
yeah, Brody pointed him out.
Bison
Okay.
spelled with an O, not
I know.
an
He
E.
pointed him out to me. I got it.
I just wanna know what
He was-
clipping was.
He was taking care of me.
Okay, I mentioned fine down there later. It
And I have
says
the
when
same
certain things
question.
happen, you can be cited and fined $100. Who has the right to cite them?
Well,
within our
I
city
wanted to
and-
put that in there because,
The police station's right there.
right. You guys, I would like more than 100 to be honest with you, because skateboard, those kind of things in that water feature will damage it.
But see, I would say that this should apply not just to skateboards, but any violations of these rules, and
I'm with
subject to a
Jordan.
warning.
No, I'm with Jordan on that. We really need to apply one penalty, and it is across the board. It'd be you damage the feature, you have to make restitution and you pay a fine.
I'm okay with that,
Cause-
but whose responsibility does it become? Who has the right within our city to issue a
Police
citation? Is it just the police?
Well,
Is
are we
it
gonna
the
call Ken? I mean, this is a
Code
good question.
enforcement?
I don't know, it's very hard to police.
It is hard to police. So,
I mean, some of them, if someone's climping on something, we can, I mean, you wouldn't walk up and give a kid $100 ticket.
no,
But
you
you'd
would
give them a
warn 'em,
warning.
And if they go against that, then I think you need to, because the alternative is that you
Yeah.
shut down.
Agree.
Because
Brody?
there are things in the future, if it gets ruined, it's gonna be a lot more.
I was
Agreed.
gonna say, Paul, unless I'm wrong, we can pretty much deputize Park and Rec employees to issue the fines, right?
Yeah, so as long as they're the civil citations, yeah, the criminal citations have to be sworn officers, but the civil ones can be done by
Right.
Okay.
any city employee.
That put a smile on Garrett's face.
One less thing to.
Deputy Robinson, right here.
But I do think it should be applied to more than just the skateboards. If someone's in there with glass, again,
That's dangerous.
I agree.
I think anything that is any type of a safety risk for other people in the park would warrant a citation. Everything else, I think you get away with a warning.
Let's talk about the monetary fine. How much? Krista said higher.
Well, I'm,
How about this? If you write a citation, then there is a record of that violation. Maybe the answer is it's higher for second and following violations.
I would just put a range and say we get to like most things. Littering is subject to $50,000 to $250,000.
I don't wanna make it that crazy, I
But
think.
that's
but my
common on a
point
lot
is-
of signs.
My point is, the
Because
people
then
who
if they
don't
damage
follow
the
the rules.
property, they have to be able to take care of it.
But wouldn't that be a criminal citation though?
Well,
If
and,
they make
and
Depends
that
on-
would be, makes restitution. So any damages, restitution is expected. But violation of the rules, there should be a first fine and a subsequent fine.
Brody?
So, you know, escalating the fine for an individual, I think is fine, but this is an area where I would say you do want to give your staff the discretion,
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
every situation is different, and there's mitigating circumstances, there's aggravating circumstances, depending on exactly what happened.
I would
And
put,
so-
I would make it like $50,000 to $5,000, depending on the severity of the violation. If they are tearing parts off the waterfall or something like that,
I see.
Because they're
that-
climbing-
Wouldn't we turn that over to the police?
Probably.
And that should become full restitution, not, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what the cost is.
so there is vandalism. But yeah, I think that there ought to be a range, and
They have to
it'll
pay
be at the
$100,000
discretion.
to make it right. If they destroyed something on purpose.
Yeah,
they
that
took
goes
it
in the
away from
misdemeanor.
everybody.
That's true.
Paul, let's let Paul weigh in here.
So there are some provisions existing in code that address this in a way. We've got a section that talks about care of parks, and it says you're not allowed to damage things. If you have a person who's intentionally damaging the park, then it'd be a criminal mischief or a vandalism citation, and restitution would be part of that as part of the criminal proceedings.
Okay.
So you wouldn't necessarily have to provide for that specifically. If someone accidentally damages your stuff, then they aren't going to get a criminal citation. So it might be good to have a section that specifically says that, you know, either the person, or if they're the guardian of the person who did it, that they're responsible for the repair of it. We also do have a section generally applicable to all of our parks that says that it's if a person violates any rule, it's an infraction and it's subject to a fine not to exceed $500. So if you wanted to break it into different levels, we can do that.
I
That's
would just
the
use
generally
that
applicable
exact
rule.
wording.
I'm okay with that.
500, yeah.
Say per. It's already in our ordinance. Let's just subject to exactly what you just said. I'm trying.
Council, I'm gonna suspend discussion on this. I think we're close enough. Krista, I think you've got some good information
As
here.
long as you guys are okay with the rest, another big one that we didn't talk about, Mayor, that I really wanted to talk about was the opening times.
Oh, the 8 to.
The 10 a.m.
10
to
to
8, the 10 a.m. to 8 p.m.
I thought those were
What-
good.
I think that's
Why
great,
not
especially
till dark or dusk?
because it turns dark when it's still warm in even September.
And remember, staff. You don't need staff here till 10 p.m. every night
Just
in
shut
the
it down.
summer.
We're gonna have to shut down, and then there was discussion that if people wanted to rent it just out for parties or whatever, if you guys decided to
It
do
could
that,
be
you could
after
do like.
We could
from
do like
9
an
to
8:30 to 10 as on a special.
Okay.
I think it's always good too to have a general 8 o'clock. It's like a store. You know when something opens and closes, you can plan accordingly, and you would know when your child would be kicked out of the park if it was over, and when to expect them home, and it gives less.
I think it's a lot more black and white.
It
no
is.
gray.
It's very
Yeah.
black and white.
Corinne, will you
Yeah.
weigh in?
I see where you're coming from. I agree.
Yes, I do agree that the time works, especially where it's going to be more of a summer type of situation. The question is 8 o'clock, is that too late? Is that okay? What's your feeling, Krista?
Everything that I looked at, that was mostly when people are shutting down. Is it 8
Okay, so
p.m.?
that's pretty standard then.
And
I don't
then-
think late's the issue. I'm more concerned about mid-July. Is it too early? Because people are hot. They want to cool down. Is it too early? But at the same time, I understand. I don't necessarily want staff to have to come back at 9 or 10.
Yeah, and then if there are opportunities where that we can have this as a rental for an hour and a half afterwards to kind of give our some citizens an extra benefit. It's another place they can rent and use for family gatherings. So
When we did visit that one park and they had, an opening time and everybody knew about it and people were showing up at that opening time, and if the water's going to be off at 8, I think that people, majority is going to go away at 8, so they'll know they can't cool off at 9. So if we have a cut and dried time, I like it.
I'm in favor. I've asked the questions, but I'm in favor.
okay.
And then the only other thing is just the rentals for the pavilions. This is gonna be a hot commodity. I just want you
Yeah.
guys thinking if you want to charge more in the sense of this one more than you do our other parks. The $25 for 4 hours seems not.
For 4 hours?
That's what we do for our other
I think
pavilions,
that's not fair
$25 for
because
4 hours.
I would do it for an hour.
That is so cheap. I had to book Barnes for one pavilion for an event, and it was $20 per hour.
Right. So
Have you benchmarked that with other cities?
we did a while ago when we did these, and we used to charge a lot cheaper.
My
Well,
we've
concern
gone up.
about that as well is if we do it by the hour, then we give more people the opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
Because
guys want it
people
by
will
the
be
hour?
more concerned to be in and out
By
so
the
that somebody
hour.
else can have the next hour. That just gives
I
the
agree.
opportunity to more people.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Thank you for your input, and let's take just a minute and talk about the opening date, Dave, and
Okay, so, because of the weather, sod won't take fast enough, so we've decided to open it the Saturday that begins Syracuse Days festivities. That does give us the landscaping time to just get it finished. Also give us some testing time. We're gonna need at least a week to make sure everything is running properly before we bring in the general public. So that day, we're going to have a grand opening. I think it should open at 10 on the regular
That's what we're
time. Yeah, and we've talked about a few festivities. We'll probably get some, see if we can get a radio station or two here. If
Food
we can,
trucks.
food trucks.
I've already talked to some food trucks.
Yep, Jordan did that. We're going to have a initial grand opening rubber ducky race, and race rubber duckies down to the end of the feature.
So there will be ducks there that day.
There will be ducks there.
They better not go potty.
Okay,
These ducks won't be able to.
Good.
let's move on. Let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
Council, I'm going to cut our time down to 20 minutes. We still have a lot to discuss, including the tentative budget.
Okay.
So we're going to cut this one to 20. Krista?
So, it's the continued discussion of the Parks Master Plan. You guys went through this a few times. Councilmember Savage, Brody, and myself got together and discussed this again, and made some edits. And Brody has spent quite a bit of time, piecing together all of those edits. And so, Jordan, do you wanna discuss any of that we've
Sure.
done?
So I did. Thank you, by the way, Brody, for looking at that. So one thing, there's a couple things we need to address in here. Is one, just so everyone knows. So I guess did we just determine we could include the cemetery as part of our overall count? I noticed it went up from, we were at like 3.9, we're up to like 5 point something, 5.11.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna count it for purposes of the plan. I still don't know if under state law that can be counted at for impact fee purposes.
Okay. So I guess there's still some questions there.
Yeah, but for the purposes of the plan, I think you're okay if you want to use it.
Okay.
Okay, because I do want to address that, make sure we get that clear, because this will, one of the things we're trying to make sure we do is want to make sure we're taking good care of our parks. And right now, in the past, we have not been counting a lot of parts of our parks, and so we haven't had the money to properly upkeep them. In fact, we have some basins that probably could use some TLC that we've not been able to do. So we're hoping that this will help us be able to properly take care of our parks a little bit better. I would like to consider, in the first paragraphs, we talk about our goal in general provisions.
So on that, I think that we're probably not gonna be able to finish this tonight.
No.
I kind of feel like we have to answer the question that you just posed before we can make a final decision on that. Because I think the level of service that we decide depends on what we can actually count.
Mm-hmm.
So I think until that's answered, it's probably fruitless to
Agree.
try and discuss that.
But one thing we do know is that we don't have enough parks to properly service our various programs.
We do that.
So one thing, once we determine what that is, regardless, I don't want this new level of service where we're actually counting a lot of this to give us the impression that we've arrived and we don't need any more parks. So I would actually, once this is done, I would recommend that we revisit 8.10 general provisions and revisit our goal of 4.95.
I agree.
I agree, especially, I don't totally disagree with our idea
Totally disagree.
where we put in all this other open space in our
Yeah.
city, because I think that's worth calling out.
Well, especially
But-
as we go out and, sorry to interrupt, I just want to put this out there. The big reason why we have two level of services, one is what we are taking care of, but the second is the one that we actually want to advertise to the world, that we have a lot of beautiful open space in Syracuse that we actually want to keep.
We want to keep it.
And so we want to make sure we're counting it. We want to make sure we're telling people that this Syracuse is a place of open space. We want that to be part of our reputation.
If we don't designate it as preserved, then we don't have the right to maintain that level.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so I like it, and but I don't, what I'm not so sure about
Okay.
is this calculation that we came up with of 0.5 acres. So,
For every 1,000.
we said we would count it as a half.
So we
Every
don't need to
acre,
do that
half.
anymore.
Yeah.
Now
I
that
would
we've-
just like to say there's a total of X number of acres owned by school, church, golf course, blah, blah, blah,
Yep.
that's open space.
I agree with that. I would actually like to. I think we talked about that, Brody.
Yeah.
I think we need to take out the 0.5 and just so we'll advertise city-owned parks that's either programmable or city-owned open space, and the rest of it we want to take credit for the huge amount of effort put on by previous city councils, citizens putting in golf courses. That we in Syracuse we take pride in our open space.
So just to clarify, you want to remove the connection to the population? Is that what you're talking about on
No.
Syracuse city
Not
goals?
necessarily.
Not the 4.95
I mean,
acres? Or
I'm
are you
just
looking-
saying.
Later
okay,
on, well, go ahead. I'll let you
private
talk.
use, the private use, it's on page 9, that's where that starts.
Yep.
Okay.
And we say we won't count it as 0.5 acres per 1 acre of land. I just think
Oh,
we
okay.
need to just say that there was a total someplace, 230 acres, right?
Mhm.
Let's just say there's 230 acres and that amounts to X number per resident. But it's not calculated into anything else we do.
So
It's
just give us
just
that this
stated.
is how much.
So this is the
Right.
number that will be going in our flyers to go out to businesses,
Mhm.
because businesses
That's a
want to
good
locate
idea.
an area where
Economic
it's
development.
yeah, economic
Good.
development. Let's advertise that we have a lot of open space and that we love our trails, we love our bikes, we love our rollerblades.
I have another definition I'd like to slightly alter. On page 3, when we talk about what active space versus passive space is, this I hope is easy to approve, but I'd like to say passive space includes areas that are open to the public and are not designed to host sports programs, because when you say organized programs, that could include our nature programs, our camps, and they are
And they
designed
are
for
part of
that.
that. Yeah.
Okay. That's a good.
That's good.
It's
Who's
very
taking
minor,
notes? Are
but
you
I
taking
think
notes,
it's,
Krista?
let's just be accurate.
Did you? I think you had a printout,
I
didn't
think
you?
that's a good idea.
One thought over on page 7, where at the top you're talking about these properties that we cannot really assess as part of ours, and it looks like the note should be under the golf courses and other paid venues as well, rather than above that. Just a thought. Just switching the location, it's not necessarily, but it should also include those items as well.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
flip the two.
Oh, I see what you're
Mhm.
saying.
Oh yeah,
At
yeah.
the
I see what
top,
you're
yeah.
saying. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, just, thank you.
So this right here, this note actually applies this whole section.
Yeah.
I actually
Not
need
just the
know
HOA.
several grammatical things. Do you want me to go through and itemize them? Okay. I wasn't sure if this is gonna be our
I have a
last.
few more. I'll text you about it.
We
Yeah,
need to,
if, on spelling or grammatical, if you just wanna, can you email them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
I noticed we have a lot of headers that have no content under them. Down near the bottom, like walking distance, says this section will analyze the existing walking distance from parks and open spaces, including maps.
Do you want to explain that, Brody?
Yeah, tell me your
What
thoughts
page?
there. I'm on page
11.
11.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is under the analysis section of the plan. Each of those headers analyze where we are on our actual goals that we listed in the goals section.
Okay.
So this was put in just to be consistent. For example, we analyze above our acreage per thousand.
Uh-huh.
So this was added so that we analyze our other goals, because
Okay.
we want to meet all our goals, not just the acres per thousand.
I like this then.
Yeah.
And so this kind of just we'll do the analysis of each of those goals and where we are today, and just put that in there.
Okay.
Somewhere I have written down here that the linear park description had a double negative in it, kind of reverse the actual meaning. I have to find that. And then in the end, on the possible fundings, we refer to the state of Idaho. Don't know where this was pulled from, but let's make sure we refer to Utah. None of our parks
If
are in
Idaho will give us money, we'll take
I'm
it.
okay with the money part of it, but I don't think they'll give it to the wrong.
Okay, just a couple notes on page
Fair, yeah.
9, if we can. It's talking about level of service. Do we want to put in there a mention of something like Barlow Park being located on Syracuse city boundaries, and that?
I think the way that Jordan wrote it up, where it says we consider space as serviceable.
Church space and, yeah,
Yeah,
they kind of break
I don't
that
want to
down.
call out parks by name, but in our maps, they will be highlighted
present.
on our maps and be part of the calculation.
Yeah. So that comes into play when we talk about we want all of our residents to be within a 1 mile walking distance.
Applies to Idaho.
Parks outside of our city were going to come into play. It won't necessarily come into play in terms of acreage per thousand, though.
It just comes into vicinity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just for
Proximity.
walkability.
Okay, another question though at the bottom of the page, because it's talking about, because they are not city owned, these facilities are not factored. Anyway, just it's a little redundant. Just wondering if we need to restate all that again.
Okay.
Bottom of 9.
Oh, you're talking about 12 HOA and barriers. Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
You are
it's-
it's repetitious, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
School and private open space associated. yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I would like to, however, call out Jordan and say thank you for your extra effort on this.
Yes.
I know you
savage
went
draft.
above and beyond to kind of take the bull by the horns on this, and good job.
Yes.
Thanks. Just scared me when I saw a 90 page plan.
Me too. And I'm glad we won't end with one. I think we're done.
We
can
good?
move on.
Can we put this on a business for a final read and then approval?
Yeah, I think
Not
there's
the-
still quite a bit missing. I don't know if we're
I
quite there
don't
yet.
think we're ready for a consent agenda item on
Okay.
this, but as a
Right.
discussion in a business meeting and maybe a vote,
Sure.
are you there?
Ken, also, well, I would suggest that you send this to the Parks Committee as well for their comments.
Oh, that's a
Okay.
good idea.
So I'll just say, yeah, there's some pluses and minuses with that. If you want, their buy-in or their their comments, I think that's a good idea. For the council's perspective, this is your document.
Gotcha.
And they did put together the bones for it, although you modified it. So it's up to you.
The recommendation I've had from several people has been to, as a council, let's present them that this is our plan, but let them be the maintainers of the plan. So we'll give them a plan, say, here's what kind of our vision, and then going forward, they'll be the ones to recommend changes to it as they need to.
That's
Oh, hey, really quick, on page 10, there's a note about cemetery. And where we're considering expanding that, we may want to put a note in there just because we don't want it to be outdated within a year. Anyway, just a thought.
Well, I don't think we know what the overall plan is yet. I'm okay with updating this twice a year if we need to.
We,
Well, whatever
Go
the
ahead.
council,
we meet on the
So-
fourth, go ahead, Rudy.
I was just gonna say, on that, what we did was, so there's the 8.1 existing acres, and I just included 6 for future.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what we talked about, and that's how we got to the total of 14.
perfect, thank you.
Rhodey, can we put this on the agenda for the 14th, and could we get out a draft email to the council that they could review perhaps next week with input back again to you and Cresta? And maybe with a, you know, if we're that close, maybe we could do a final read in the business meeting and vote this up or down.
Sure.
Good,
Oh, good? You good with that, council?
Yes.
Okay.
yes, sir.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Okay, let's
Thank
move
you.
on. Let's talk about the bike ramp.
Okay. Bike ramp. As you guys know, on April 9th, you guys voted to put the awarded the linear park to Landscape Specialties, but we pulled out the bike ramp. Councilmember Mon and Savage wanted to maybe discuss putting an art concept instead of the bike ramp. I've included the bike ramp that was put in there plus the bid, which was a $22,000. You can break it down and see what that was. But the discussion was to either have it or to put in the art component. And so if you guys want to take that discussion.
I think that we left a space in the design for something that would greet people into the city. And I think if we had some kind of art component there, public art, I particularly like the rustic buffalo that we've added, the water feature. If we were to modify something like that, it's a lot less money, but I also think it gets more mileage for the city.
Were you able to get a cost on one of those buffalo? I know that's one thing we've kind of been waiting on.
The rustic buffalo that was over there, if you want just one of those.
Sure.
Today we were talking to Scott and I believe he said it was 6,000
6,000.
for the big one.
Won't it be an attractive nuisance? Kids will climb on that because my thought with the linear park is that it's meant to be something that kids can play on their way through, and so I'm afraid that that'll turn into something they just climb on.
And I kind of want both. So I don't want something that's just artwork for the sake of community artwork, because this is going to be kids a lot of the time. It's going to be kids riding their bike and walking to school. But I do want something that says you're in Syracuse.
See, and that's my point, is one of the main entrances to the city as you come down 193 and turn down 2000. When you're getting towards the heart of the city, there's that spot that would be with the native grasses, so it's not where you would normally walk. It's away from, like other
Right.
monument type fixtures are away from. And I just thought if we did something, I did not have time to do real artwork here, but just to express maybe, you know, something like this standing in the grass. So, you know, we can maybe put the city logo on a buffalo, put another one with our slogan, Gateway to Antelope Island. Just kind of gives it some class. The city
I
sign.
like it.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I like the idea of sticking with the core 10 still. We can,
I like
keep
that.
it simple.
Brody?
You can't climb
She likes
on
the
it.
410 still.
So you're kind of in luck because the way the bids came out, we're about $18,000 under budget. So you can actually have both if you want. You can have
Well, bingo.
That's what I was going to ask for. I would
You want both.
and the sign.
a sign away from where kids would play,
Okay, so
and
that
still
can
at
be
least
away.
one of the ramps.
I
Yeah.
do think you need to be
sticking
careful
with
in case
something
there's any
similar
change
to what we
orders.
have at the water feature might be good, because I know that when you commission something from a specific artist, you don't know what the price is gonna end up being, so, I mean,
totally
you can tell
understand.
them.
Will there be any
we should be able to get the same
If we already have
thing.
a price for something
We
that's
don't have
already
anything.
designed.
What's running the sprinklers?
Material we like, there's no
There'll be
maintenance.
some power
I
in there.
don't know.
Yeah, it's no maintenance.
Will,
so
will,
like that.
will the power be, will your power box be in that little field? Your sprinkler controller? Because ideally, I would actually like to ditch the small ramp. I actually don't, I'm not opposed to the multiple
Triple?
bumps, the
I like the
triple.
triple.
I'm fine with the triple. I don't think we need the single.
Or something.
Yeah, the Wii or whatever.
No, the baby one's the Wii.
So I'm okay with one of them, definitely not both, but I do want to put in the entrances.
So
Okay,
it sounds like if we were to do the Buffalo for 6 and stick with the triple, that was 22, is that right?
Now the triple was some
Both
part
of
of
them are
22.
22.
Okay, so portion, so then we're in good shape, even if we come up with change orders?
I can
Sorry.
answer the question. Both ramps are 22.
Okay, so if we just did the triple,
I'm good with that.
I just think, you know, we're limited on features and parts. When I look at the money, I say, I could put in new picnic tables in 2 full pavilions, or I could have a little ramp that may be used by a handful. I could put in new bleachers for one of our sports fields, or I could have this little thing. The number of people served by that amount of money concerns me. I just think that I could have a new bench in every park, or, you know, for a fraction of that versus this one little thing that may or may not even be appealing.
Council, let me survey the council. Dave, you've given me your opinion. Doug?
I would like to have the entry Buffalo or something for sure, and I would like to have the 3 whoopie-doo.
Lisa?
I'd like the 3 bike ramp, I think it'll be something the kids love, and then I'd like a Buffalo.
Okay.
It's out of the way.
Jordan?
I can support that, but I want 2 buffalo.
You want 2 buffalo?
I want a big buffalo and a little buffalo. Because we're all about
That would be
families.
cute.
That would actually be really
true.
fun.
Corinne?
Baby
See,
Buffalo.
that's why I have 2.
I do like the 3 and the buffalo. I do like Jordan's idea because we are raising little buffaloes.
Okay.
That's great, really great.
Cresta, do you have a direction?
Big buffalo, little buffalo, and the 3 whoop-de-doos.
Whatever it takes.
If we can afford
I like it.
If we can afford it,
Yeah, if that breaks the budget, then.
No.
there's 1 buffalo,
Huh?
then nix the baby buffalo.
I'd probably nix the 3 whoop-de-doos before I nix the
Yeah.
2 buffalo.
The buffalo are you know, identified as city.
I think the 2 Buffalo will probably end up being what the 2 separate, the Wii and the triple would end up being. I think we're pretty close.
Because you have to think that it's 6,000, but you have to think of the install.
Right.
Those installs
Right.
were not easy over
Good
there.
point.
And we
So
want them
let's-
lighted.
concrete
Yeah, let's
was a
find out what
lot.
they'd
We
be.
want them
And that was the
lighted.
thing that's why I was
you want
asking
them
about
lighted?
We
power.
want them lighted
And
because,
if you want them lighted, it's gonna be more money.
because we want people at night to see that.
So tell
Then
me,
one buffalo then.
where is the sprinkler controller? I guess I don't remember from the plans.
Sprinkler controller on your phone.
The sprinkler controller is further north.
Yeah,
It's away
clear
from
down.
that.
How far north?
Like the whole next street.
Yeah,
So
next
I don't know
street.
what that is, like
So-
1/8 of a mile.
I don't think you're gonna get them
But,
lighted unless.
okay, but wait a minute, there's power at the other end, we're just gonna have to
What about-
add it.
It's just harder.
You're just trying to pull power over
Yeah.
for the.
Let's see what.
Yeah, we can look at.
That's
Yeah,
not
there's
gonna
power
break
in
the
the
bank.
light poles.
Right
Or
there.
That's-
even a
that.
solar
yeah.
option.
Yeah, that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, solar
Could be
options.
something we can work.
Cresta,
Well,
would you
I'm
have
flexible.
staff
I'd
look
just
into
like to
that?
see-
Yes.
Because we
How
don't have an answer
how
tonight
flexible
for
are
it.
you?
Yep.
Okay, council, let's move on. We've got a lot to cover,
I think
but we're gonna
done.
put Noah in the hot seat.
Ooh,
Good job, Chris.
that was so bad.
We've got 6 items from planning we need to discuss.
J.1 Amendment to the general plan map, R1 to PRD. As you know, we've had a lot of discussion on this. It is about 20 acres along Bluff Road. The applicant, Mike Bastion, is here. He's provided a plan. That was the direction last council is to come back with some more details of what he's actually proposing. So he's here, he's ready to tell you what he's proposing.
Where do you guys want me to?
I don't know, Mr. Mayor, do
You
you
wanna
want?
go here?
Why don't you
Do
come
you
up
want
here?
to turn the time over to
Yeah,
him,
let's
or
do
do you want
that.
me to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, please. Can you move to the head of the table, Mr. Bastian?
Hey.
And you'll have to have your spidey senses, Corinne.
Just picture it.
Or you could turn the camera towards the
We could do that.
presentation.
Yeah, let's just bring the camera behind Doug and point it that way. Doug, you're
That'd
in
be
charge of
awesome.
that.
Thank you.
So you're looking at each other, looking in the camera.
You were the
looking
closest.
here.
Thanks, Doug.
His draft plan has been included in the packet on
Just a smidge farther.
page
rotating.
70.
Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. That's about right.
Actually, we can see where it is, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so this has been through a lot of discussion and revisions. Hopefully this holds. So I went back to the drawing board and came up with something that we have about 18 to 18 and a half acres here. The density that we're asking for is it's about 5.6, 5.7 on our units per acre. So we're under 6. We could get some more, but we're not gonna push it more. I had an open house with a lot of the members of Trailside. We had about 50 members come over to the Syracuse yeah, thank you. Center over here. We rented a classroom, and we had a lot of good discussion there about some concerns, things that we could do, maybe that might be better for Trailside and for the community. Some of the things we came up with was so I'm presenting something that's, I envision this being a mix of from the start of buying the home process, those that are starting to those that are looking to either you're in your second, third, or even in your last home where you don't want any stairs and you want patio homes. So so you've got townhomes here, and then these I want to do a deed restriction or a, I don't know if that's right, Paul, that I said, but put an R on the plats where they're restricted to only be patio homes, so that there's no possibility of doing a 2-story on these twin homes here. Originally, I had townhomes right here when I went to that meeting with members of Trailside, and somebody brought up that, hey, I bet you could get, because our views right here, you put 2 stories here and it's going to be obstructed a bit. So I went back and looked at it and I said, you're right, I can do 2 twin homes here, and this was a duplex townhome, and I could move those down to where I have 2 duplex lots here. There was no adding or subtraction of units, no add or loss of units, but yet I think that this lends a lot better for my neighboring community with Trailside right here. The biggest concern, and I don't know how, I'm open to working with the city on this, but this road that connects. But that's a connecting street, and as a developer, I know that like this road will step into the future PRD that's coming. This will go to the UDOT surplus property, and this will go there. I have to stub to neighboring properties for future growth. But this is a big concern. But whether I do a PRD, whether I do anything, I think the city's going to make me connect that. One thing that we talked about was the possibility of doing a couple speed bumps here to deter people from, one, slowing down as they come into here, or encourage people to come onto Bluff and take their travel that way.
Okay, so as long as we're talking about, yeah, speed bumps are not allowed. Okay, so as long as we're talking about the traffic issue, I want to bring up what I've seen as a problem for a long time in this plan, and that is that you have this right angle to Bluff, which I understand is one concern for safety, but directly across the road at about just a few feet off is another road that stubs to Bluff, and we have historically, is Robert in the room? Robert's not in the room. We have talked so many times about roads that do not align being a serious safety concern. We talked about it here on 2000 many, many times, that if you don't have a road that goes out and you offset those, like you see that a little bit on 1000, that it's a serious safety concern because people don't see each other coming onto the road.
And that's a good point. And I know that Brian will review that and make sure our spacing is what it has to be as per the state code, that you can only be within, if it's not straight across, it has to be so far offset.
And you're not very far offset at all.
And then that road that goes into the R.C. Willie property, you know, that road, when that happens, whatever happens there, could be totally realigned right here. Who knows how that's going to lay out? That's just an unknown right now. But we'll make sure that this is done as per how it has to be done with engineering. So,
So one thing, and this is just for my clarification.
Yeah.
So since you are set back and there's a trail, are you not doing any improvements like sidewalks, curbs and gutter
No,
along Bluff?
So at this, along Bluff, I do have to improve along Bluff. I do
Okay.
have to improve along Bluff. I don't have to do, as far as Brian said, sidewalk along Bluff, but I do have
'Cause
to
we have the
improve
trail.
with curb and gutter.
Right.
Yeah, and then the trails obviously will be in this space right here. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something we have to take into consideration. So the ordinance calls for 20% open space. I'm at 29% open space. And when I say open space, I'm not counting like these little green areas in between. Like I'm counting like usable open space where you could put a bench where more than just yourself is going to enjoy being at your backyard, you know. So I'm at 29% open space with this concept plan. Any questions that I might be able to handle or talk about? I brought some examples of what these will look like. I know this is more down the road if we get to this, but the nice thing about the way the code got written, I really think, is a general plan change, you have to bring a concept plan in. It's not just, oh, I promise it should be something like this, or I'll do, you know, I mean, this is what I'm going off of, you know. So these are twin homes, patio homes, slab on grades, and I think these match really well with Trailside, with what they offer, with single level living.
Did you not just say no double story?
Yeah,
'Cause you
so
do have two
so
stories.
those will be 2 stories, but those
Just
would
in those
be,
areas.
Those are just in that back.
those would be more back here, but these will be restricted to only these patio home areas. And then obviously, we'll put patios still back here, but there might be a homeowner who wants to buy a 2-story, you know what I mean? So that's how we'll look at it. And then in the way the new code's written, these are some townhomes that we've done recently over in West Point. You know, roof pitches will be varied. It says in the code that the roof pitches have to be staggered and that, so they'll even be dressed up more than this. But this is a really good looking community over here. Really similar to Stoker Gardens. So, but the way the code's written, they'll be dressed up better than Stoker Gardens as well. They'll have a better curb appeal.
And so those are what? Those are fourplexes?
These are 4. Some of them cut off, but some do go to a 6. And some of these are 6, 4, and I got rid of the duplex, so 6 and 4.
So where do you have those going in on this plan? Where are you seeing those? Along this
The-
side?
These ones right here.
Okay.
These ones here, and this one here will be the village of the townhomes.
And then we've got twin patios.
Twin patios here, and then this will be a mix of twin patios and twin duplexes.
Okay.
Yep.
So no single homes.
No. These will be, you own the property, you can fence these properties. This is a twin home where you own the actual lot. Yep.
So I recently was at a water convention discussing how we mitigate water problems, and I brought to the council my report that when you deal with wetlands, it's very common that putting in land drains or such on one property simply just diverts it to the neighboring properties. And where we have a neighboring community that's already developed, and what was discussed there was how we create a problem for people because they now end up with the need for sump pumps because we've diverted the water onto their property that was in the wetland or the vacant property.
You're talking about trailside, right?
I am.
Okay.
I'm really concerned that mitigating the wetland issues here is just gonna create water problems for the trailside community.
So they're 4 feet higher than me. There's a retaining wall, you might be 5 feet higher than me right there somewhere, in some places. So there's no ground that's at my level. And the reason we're doing our improvements the way we're doing them we're proposing to do them is between this community and ours, we're working with UDOT to get an access over through the West Davis corridor, underneath that, and go into the Woodside, what's that called over there?
Stillwater.
Yeah, Stillwater, thank you. The reason we're doing all of that is so that we don't have to build this up 5, 6, 7, even 8 feet like this community had to on the end here, so you can get storm drain, sewer, and everything to come out. And that's a good point, and so that's why we're trying to do our improvements this way, so that, or we are doing our improvements this way, storm drain as well will go over there, so that we don't have to bring this whole site up and put our water off onto other properties. If anything, it'll clean up this property with a proper grading plan, because this has always had mules and cows on it. That's all it's ever really grown, you know. So
is there a reason that we've gotten rid of the single family home in favor of twin homes? I would prefer to see some single family homes. So is there a reason that you've changed that concept? Is there?
Well, because I can get, when you have a single family home and you have a certain lot width, it's hard to get a patio home on it, right? If you're trying to do, I mean, you're trying to get the units on there, right? When you have a single family house and you have to have the 5 foot and 5 foot, you have another 10 feet in between houses that you could have had 5 more feet of house
On the twin home.
on the twin home. So it allows for a better footprint.
So you've only got those 2-story in the very back there. Is there a reason that we don't want to have there be, I mean, actually, these are 2 stories,
These
right?
are 2 stories
So this
here.
whole section is.
Here.
So why would we not go with 2-story single family homes? I'm
I
just
mean-
thinking about the area over by Stillwater.
Right.
We have a lot of, you're able to get 6 homes per
Right.
acre, 2-story.
And that's a good point, and I thought about that, but I've had a lot of people say that they'd love to be able to get into a community like this with single level living. You know what I mean?
So the twin homes are all patio. I'm
Not
sorry,
all
not
Single
patio,
level.
but I can,
I mean
but
single level.
they'll all fit these on here. They'll all fit patio homes or duplex, how homeowners would purchase them.
Okay.
But it'll allow us to get that in there, and so that's why we went with the more duplex style of building, twin home, if you will, versus going narrower and up. Just because I want to allow to accommodate to everybody. Do you know what I mean? Not just, I mean, stairs are intimidating when you get to a certain age. You know what I mean? I've done townhome communities before, and people are really excited about them, and they call me and say, "Do you have any that offer main level living?" I don't, and they're just, I can't buy. You know. So if I had all 2 stories, it really eliminates. And and the reason I'm not doing a 55 and older, I want to have the ability to appeal to all ages here, right? But the reason I'm not doing to a 55 and older, in fact, I was showing a gal in my office this presentation or proposal today, and she lives in Farmington. She's in her mid-30s, and she said, "I am looking for a patio home," but they're all 55 and older, or the majority. A lot of them are in 55 and older areas. And so she said, "I would buy in here all day long to get no stairs," you know. So it's going to lend to a lot of different
There's no
range.
limitation
Yeah.
on age in this area. So
Yeah.
Council, I'm gonna move us on. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you taking
You
the
bet.
time to bring us up to date on what your plans are.
So to be clear, so this is not the same as what's in the packet.
It is, but I changed this.
Well, you change. So there's a
Oh,
detention
and-
basin
and-
in the back.
And there, this stayed the same. Oh, this put one more here, and this went to here. Does that make sense?
We just need to get an update to make sure it's
I'll send
official.
this to Noah.
Yeah, the roads are the same, but yeah, he did.
Roads are all the
just
same,
move
layout's
lots
the
around.
same.
Okay.
Thank you for meeting with Trailside and working with them.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Could I ask for some clarification from you guys? of.
Are we ready to go to the business agenda with this?
I want to make sure I understand what we're.
Well, I mean, I think there's, as noted here, the planning commission voted unanimously to recommend denial of this. And I don't know how we disrespect them so much to just say, hey, you're crazy, we're gonna vote the other way. I think a unanimous decision for denial from the body that we've organized to be the body that says, does it meet our code, does it meet our standards, does it fit well in Syracuse? That's a pretty strong recommendation to me.
To add on, can I add on to that?
I was about to, but
Okay, go ahead.
To finish that, I'm going to say we've had several people come out tonight, and many people come to many meetings repeatedly and speak against this. That's a very large voice with a lot of effort. I am not going to go against them. So if you're trying to, you repeatedly send this to us as if one of these days we're going to give in. But I am not going to go against all the people and the planning commission and say that I know better than all of them.
I'm along the same lines.
I'm going to ask you not to respond. Corinne?
Okay, I just would like to say that considering the fact that this is going to be adjacent to West Davis Corridor, that if this isn't allowed and it's sold to a different developer sometime in the future, we can plan on something much higher density than this being proposed, because it will be adjacent to a major thoroughfare. And so I think this is a great option for being next to a major thoroughfare in the future.
Now, in all fairness, Mayor, if you will, just 1 second, if you will, in all fairness, this was the proposal that everybody had in their mind. Because I've been working on this for over a year. And everybody thought I was going to come in with 188 townhome units, pack them in as tight as I could. And guilty, I was working on that, you know what I mean? And then once I saw, I started to look at the density of Trailside and what my neighbor on the side of me is working on, I thought this isn't going to work at all. And so I came up with I feel, a really good compromise. But when we had all that opposition and a lot of negative to that, I mean, a month ago, there was a lot more people here to speak against it. But this was a good compromise, I feel like. It goes from 12 units to below 6.
Mayor, with all due respect,
Dave, I'm going to suspend discussion. Paul?
So this is a land use application, so the applicant's entitled to a vote. So it needs to go to a business agenda because that's where we vote. So you can't just say we're not going to vote on it. So it needs to go there eventually. I guess the question is, are you ready for it to go to business, or should it come back for another work session?
I want to ask, is there any situation where this would go back to the planning commission? Because I understand their initial vote, but so much has changed since then. Not only the developer's plan, but we've codified a PRD ordinance.
Mm-hmm. And originally it was looking at 12 units or 16 units, and we've gone down to less than 6, which is trail side on one side. And I think that it's really disingenuous to go back to constantly fighting something that this is no longer, and to say that where the people in Trailside live, that you can't do the same thing next to it. That isn't what we're discussing here. We're not saying to build something with high rises or 3 stories or. So I think that we've had somebody who's gone to the people and discussed it and brought things much further down.
I'm going to recognize Jordan, and I'm going to move us on.
So on the same lines, I do want to say that I like this plan much better, but until I get someone from Trailside or a planning commissioner that says they've changed their minds, I have yet to hear a positive vote for this from anyone other than the developer and a few city council members. Until I get someone else saying they're in favor of this, I'm kind of along the same lines as Dave is. I feel like I'm elected to represent the people, and I've yet to hear one person say yes.
Corinne?
I will pull out the notes from the planning commission, but I do believe that there were several absences that day, because even the person who was proposing it was not the chair at the time. It was the substitute chair, Larry
So
Holmes.
that's why I wonder if it legally can, or if it's worthwhile to go back to the planning commission, because I respect what you guys are saying about that.
I agree.
We organized that body for a reason.
Well, but we have to see what were they approving or disapproving of at the time, because it has changed so drastically since then.
I mean, I'm okay if you reapproach the planning commission with this plan and see what they say, but as it is right now.
I'm not willing to take it back to the planning commission. I'm saying that he has made a proposal and he suggested it according to what our desires as council has been, and also the residents. But we can take note of the fact that there were several absences there that day when that vote was taken, is my point.
Council, I think it's time to move this on. I'm going to order it to the business meeting for discussion and a vote up or down. So we'll move it to the business meeting on the 14th of May. Okay, potential creation of a mixed-use development zone. And we've got about 35 minutes through these planning items.
Which we have 5 more of them. Okay. Thanks for the direction there. Mixed use development zone. This is a continuation of our discussion. Potentially creating this. Last time you gave me some homework assignment to provide some more information on form-based code. So that's been included in the packet. I included an article about form-based code. I included Clearfield City's form-based code. I also included an overlay zone, which is, if you're not familiar with overlay zoning, it can sit on top of another zone. So if, say for example, if you only wanted mixed-use development to occur over something already planned for general commercial, it would be limited to sit on top of the general commercial zone. So that's also an option. And
Well, that's interesting. You just keep giving us more stuff. Trying to process all this.
So there's lots of information. I'm happy to follow, answer any questions or provide more information. But basically, the goal here is I'm after your input to see are we still interested? Do we want to create this zone? Are we ready to send it to the planning commission? Do you still want to keep giving more homework to come back each time?
Okay, I'll give you my opinion. So, after I read through your packet, I'm convinced that this is a great way to go. I think it gives us a lot of control while still giving developers and landowners a lot of flexibility. And that seems like that couldn't happen at the same time, but I feel like this does that. What I don't know at this point is what's the best stuff to put in here. I thought South Weaver's was a lot different than Provost. And I don't know what ours would end up looking like. But the idea of the form-based code I like.
Yeah,
Point of order. Corinne, are you with us?
Yes, sir. I'm just actually requesting somebody move the camera back around. That's all.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We lost.
Done and done.
We lost your video. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's because I was texting to ask for that. So
Okay,
thank you.
I like the idea of form-based where it gives, because I don't think that I can necessarily legislate the exact thing that I want. And to a certain extent, I want to see what people are willing to bring forward in this zone area. I think this zone will be fairly limited to Antelope Drive and maybe a couple other key spots. But I would be willing to give form-based a try and see what someone's can bring us. And I think really it just comes down to if there's a project that is going to be beneficial and going to give Antelope Drive kind of a wow factor, I would like to give them a flexibility to bring me a proposal.
Okay. Great.
Which I think form-based code does.
Any other discussion on this? Can we send it to the planning commission?
Along those lines, I almost would rather have an application before we decide to codify this.
Just to see if there's interest.
With form-based, there's not a lot to codify.
If there was something to apply for, if we actually had the zone, or is that what you mean, like if they can apply to amend the ordinance, or?
Yeah, to apply to amend it. I'm wondering if there's enough interest to go through with this. What I don't want to do is spend a lot of time, of our time, the planning commission's time, everybody else's time, if this, that we think that we might lean towards, wouldn't even be acceptable to anybody who's interested. So, I mean, if there was an application to act on, maybe, you know, it's worth the time. I think it's eventually worth the time, but we have so many other things. I want to know, I want to see an interest.
Okay.
I don't want to just be reactionary. I want to have it in our toolbox of things to use. That's my thing.
Yeah, either way, I'm confident that if the development community knew that that's what was the catalyst to get this going, and it was a $200 fee, that we would get a stack of 5 applications tomorrow.
That could be good.
But I want to, I mean, a part of that, what I'm hoping to get out of the application is, and maybe this is not a part of our application, but it needs to be, is I want to understand the goal. What are they trying to achieve with this development? Because if it's I mean, there are different motivations for people to do some of this. What the motivation of the city council is to try and bring more business to the city, more viable business space. At least that's my vision, and maybe what I heard is at least another. But I think that the concern is that if we start attacking this and then somebody says, "Oh, that's not at all what I would do or what I'm interested in," then we've spent a lot of time on something that's useless.
Yeah. Okay.
If the application is I just want to put as many apartments as I can, and if I have to put in a building of office somewhere to do it, that's a little different story than if I'm trying to help build business and community.
And that language is something that we direct in the first paragraph of that ordinance of what our purpose is, and they have to meet that.
Yeah, so any ordinance for me says that we have to build community and business along an area that is already economic friendly. I don't want this to say, okay, I'm going to start and try out on 4,500, try and build a community like that, because that's against our city plan.
Sure.
But if they want to do this along Antelope, it goes in line with our city plan.
Yeah, we would set a procedure within the ordinance of, you know, they still have to apply. It would be a legislative zoning decision that you guys make. So it sounds like you guys are ready to send it to Planning Commission. Do you, or do you guys want to wait till we get an application? Or are you guys just ready to send it to Planning Commission?
Okay, I'm a little flexible about that, because the purpose is, though, that anybody who applies for this has to be willing to meet the city's goals, not...
Right. And then so I'm okay sending Planning Commission. I want to get their thoughts on it. I think they have a lot of good input there. The other thing is, as we're doing our general plan, our generalization of the general plan, I do want to, you know, let's pick those areas that we think this would fit. I think we got some feedback from the Vision 2050 group that they actually called this out specifically. I think we have a lot of good direction here, and I think there's potential here. So I'd say go ahead and send it to the commission to get some feedback.
Corinne, you want to weigh in here?
You're on mute, Corinne.
We can't hear you.
Your lips are moving, but just nothing coming out.
We had a lovely helicopter flying by. I didn't think you wanted to hear. So anyway, I do think it's valuable to get the Planning Commission's perspective, because their representation really does reflect quite a bit of what we as a council also think, at least in what we've passed and so I think it's a good idea to hear their arguments and their thoughts first.
Okay. Noah, do you have enough direction there?
Yep.
Okay, let's go to item 4.
Okay, West Sunset View Estates, Phase 4. This is a 3-lot subdivision. pretty simple, straightforward, 0.8 acres. The applicant let me know that they couldn't attend, but if they had specific questions, they'd be willing to phone in. But it meets the ordinance. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with what's drawn here, but looking at this specific site, I'm concerned that there are some properties that seem to be no man's land. Who owns these? Like this little wedge right above this section.
The city.
The city owns that? How do we clean that kind of stuff up? Because I don't want to be responsible for maintaining a useless piece of property like that.
That's a good point. So just to the north
Recommend
there.
surplus.
Well, that's why when we get one of these and I see that, I'm thinking as part of this, can we clean something up?
That's a good question.
I doubt he would want
That's
that.
the lot
He
to
won't
the
want
north
it
there
put
is
in,
actually
but
part
not-
detention for another subdivision, and don't ask me why, but it was on the plat. It says detention / open space, and then now the city owns it. So it's just another one of those things where like it's an entryway monumentation.
We
where the
inherited a
city-
burden.
Yeah, so we could, yeah, I think we'll have, I mean, that'd be a separate item of maybe
Yeah, I
a surplus
understand,
property
but-
issue.
But because we don't go throughout the city looking to clean these up, we have to address them when they come forward. So,
Yeah.
but I don't have a problem with the Lakeview.
That's a good point. In fact, me and Brody were talking about this the other day.
Can we approach the developer about that prior to the sale of those lots?
Well, so I don't think he would be
He wouldn't
You
interested.
would want that
Interested.
little pie.
But this guy
pizza.
next to him might, or one of them next to him might.
Yeah, or the
It's-
guy on the other side wants to
Mhm.
have some side yard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of potential here for land surplus.
we want to divest ourselves of that if we can.
Sure. And what you can't see on the aerial there is that there's a detention basin there.
Mhm.
And so it's a little bit more
Right.
complicated.
Yeah,
Looks like
fair.
Brody might want to.
Brody?
Yeah, I was gonna mention a couple of things. That was one of them. It's a stormwater detention basin for the subdivision, I think to the north. And before we would divest, we would have to address that. But also, we'd probably want to address the issue with the neighbors, because that is their open space as part, it's the city's open space, but that was part of that subdivision.
How
People
much
probably-
space is that? Is it even an acre?
I think
No, it
it
doesn't even
is.
look like an acre.
Probably an
I
acre.
think it is like a little over an acre.
Well, if this is 0.8 for these 3 lots,
There's more
That's
land to the
A
north.
half acre.
Yeah,
That's off
there's
the
more.
page.
There's more land to the north.
oh,
It's
guess
kind
we
of a
would need to
long
see that.
skinny piece.
all right. Well, I'll
It's a
stop talking
separate
about the
issue.
one that's not under question, and I have no problem with the one. that
Okay,
is.
yeah, I say they're good. Let's.
Council, can we put this on consent?
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
We
thank
like it when people build the
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's
stuff in the
weird.
correct zone.
That's a
Number
weird
5, let's
piece.
move on to home occupation.
Legend point.
Oh, Legend Point, excuse me.
Okay.
I was trying to get to my carrot cake.
That buttermilk, that awful buttermilk.
Oh.
Does
Legend-
wonders for my complexion.
And it shows.
Legend Point Final Phase 1. So this is 29 lots. This is off of 4000 West near Criddle Farms, Rock Creek Park up there. This has gone to Planning Commission. No problems with one little detail that they discussed during the meeting is that they had a temporary cul-de-sac that's longer than 500 feet. So they discussed potential solutions for that and made a conditional approval that they provide. If you go to page number 105 of your packet, you can see the drawings, and then there's a road, Dunes Drive or 33695 West. It's to the east there. So rather than putting a gravel temporary cul-de-sac there for emergency turnaround, they preferred to have the road extended out to 3695, just like a temporary fire access road there.
Okay,
Oh, sorry, 106.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Oh, Robert also has a comment.
Robert?
If you don't mind. So, another thing that the planning commission, added as a condition was
Talk about the
there
wells.
there are two wells that are on the property according to the Division of Water Rights. The need to be, looked into, determine if the wells are active. If they're not, then they need to abandon them properly and take care of the paperwork with the state.
Before this gets approved.
Yeah,
And-
we just don't want a well that's sitting there.
So
that-
it sounds like this
so.
shouldn't go to common consent because that needs to be taken care of first and then it could be.
It's up to you guys. The applicants here might be able to give more details as well.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got a Bing here? Yeah, another one, huh? Steve Bing with Nelson Homes, thanks for the time. So there were a couple things actually on our memo. One was the wells, and then there was also some concern for a septic tank that is servicing, the home's no longer occupied, but the existing home that was there. So both the septic tank and I'm not as familiar with the wells, certainly we'll look into that. The language in the memo for the wells and the septic tank, both, we're under contract to purchase the land, but our preference would be to sort of make it a condition. We're not arguing against taking care of both of those in the proper way, but rather than having it be subject to approval, we'll make sure that it's done and taken care of as part of the, as we start construction and demolition of the house. I haven't heard back yet from Division of Water Quality, so we reached out to them to get some direction and insight on them on the wells. We have discussed with Weber County Health Department on the septic tank, and they have some guidance. Mostly what they want is just an application filled out so that they know that that's been abandoned and how it was abandoned, whether it was actually removed
I hope you're
and
in
or
Davis
filled.
County because Weber
Did I say
County
Weber
isn't gonna
County?
help us.
They're not
in
gonna do much for us. Yes, Davis County Health Department, thank you for the correction. So we're aware of it, we'll address both of them, but as to holding off to addressing them, our preference certainly would be that they're noted and, you know, follow up with the inspections and the appropriate paperwork, and whether that's before.
Well, I don't have a
Plat
problem
signed
with
or-
what you're asking, but on this council, we have run into problems where we said these things have to take place and we give conditional approval, and then those things can drag on forever. And it causes lots more work on the city. I mean, there's a lot of issues that go on there as these projects fall under our list of managed projects for months and months. So we said, I guess it was 2.5, 3 years ago, we kind of said that we were going to stop approving things that weren't taken care of first. And I'm going to stick to that. I don't have a problem with what you're doing,
So it
but
won't be on the consent agenda.
it has to be done first, in my opinion.
But we'll just have to discuss it during the meeting and see where we are on these. We'll probably need to get an update on during the business.
Corinne?
Just frequently, we have said that if things are taken care of within the, staff minutes and such, that then they are able to proceed. Why would this be different?
That's what I was thinking, Dave.
I'm not sure I follow that.
So we quite often say we approve this as long as staff comments are met.
Are addressed.
This would be this has to be filed. This is not this is not some of these trivial things that we handle in-house. This is something that has to be filed with the county.
I agree.
It wouldn't
That
be
would be
recorded
different.
though, they can't record until those things are
Yeah.
addressed though, is
Right.
what they're saying. It's
Yeah,
conditional
so it's a,
approval.
conditional approval.
Yeah.
Contingent on their completing the items addressed
So
by
I
staff.
guess what I'm saying is when it's actual paperwork that has to happen with a different agency, for me, that's different than something that has to be taken care of in our house.
But if it's contingent upon the plat being recorded, that you
You know
totally
what
control that. The
happened.
city absolutely controls that. So
It's
there wouldn't
fine.
be any risk of it carrying on. We wouldn't put all the money in the infrastructure and then not be able to sell lots, so there's a pretty big hammer that the city would hold.
I do get that.
Yeah.
This is not a,
Mayor.
Yes, Brody?
So, either way, if you can still put it on the agenda if all 5 council members are on board with the consent agenda, you still put on the agenda and have a regular vote.
Yeah, my feeling is to put it on the on the agenda, but not in the consent agenda for discussion, so that those whatever stipulations that are raised by the council can be added to that.
And it would be great if just the well issues and the septic tank were all lined up and taken care of. Right now, it sounds like there's still work to be done. That concerns me.
Well, the only work to be done is to go in and either pull the septic tank out or fill it. I suspect based on, I don't know exactly where it's at, but based on where they think it's at, it's going to be in the way of other utilities, so it would have to be pulled out. So what you're asking would be go in before we get final approval and pull out a septic tank.
I think it would cause a lot of extra headaches for them when they have the intention to do it, and they'll be doing it as a part of a large project. What you're asking them to do is line up everything in excess and pay a lot of extra money and take a lot of extra time just so that we'll say yes, when we would have to say yes anyway once it gets approved.
I think we're not on the same page. So, Robert, did you not just lead us to believe, if I understood you correctly, there's paperwork that has to be done?
Yeah,
And the
so
paperwork is
we've got
not
two
gonna be
parts.
extra. I'm not asking you to remove that, but if the paperwork's in line, you'll have to do that deal with both the well. I'm concerned about the paperwork not being in line, and especially where wells are, we've had some extensive issues with wells. If that doesn't end up lining up.
Corinne?
We can, and it was.
That's a very legitimate concern to be worried about the paperwork, but we can also stipulate that they cannot proceed until that's taken care of, and they have full intention to, so.
Council, I'm going to suspend discussion on this and place it on the agenda as an agenda item to continue our discussion on the 14th.
Thank you.
Item number 6, home occupation.
Okay, parking for home occupations. This is actually, so we actually have 2 items on the agenda that are talking about parking. Actually,
Is there?
are there?
There was one.
There's just one. Oh, okay.
I might comment here that Councilwoman Bolduc and Councilwoman Bingham had one agenda item, but they both wanted to defer that discussion until such time as Corinne could be here in person.
I got confused
Thank you.
for just a second between the 2. There are 2 very closely related issues, but this one we're talking about tonight is one that has been talked about previously. And remember last time you wanted me to kind of resurrect some language that had been discussed by Planning Commission. So Planning Commission forward a recommendation to not change the parking standards for home-based businesses. So the issue is some of these home-based businesses, as they grow, they're allowed 1 truck, but under certain circumstances, sometimes they grow and they have 2 trucks or 3 trucks. And so if there's the real question here is, are we okay if they meet certain criteria, like having a large lot or being on a major arterial? Is it okay if they have more than 1 truck? And so Planning Commission's recommendation is no, just keep the 1 standard for everybody. Don't make it complicated. If they grow and have more than 1 truck, they should just get a commercial site and where they can not
Was that
impact the
unanimous,
neighborhood.
or what was the?
That was the recommendation by Planning Commission.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if it was
It didn't
unanimous.
gain consensus, it says.
Yeah, it was unanimous.
Oh, it
And-
says it didn't.
Yes, it was.
Fail to gain
So
consensus.
one of the business owners, remember, came and spoke
What I
last
would
time.
think that means.
Yeah, it was unanimous. But after the gentleman spoke last time, he said, "Well, let us review some of that language at one time that was considered, even though it didn't pass from Planning Commission." So the more, I guess, lenient version would in essence allow them to park as many vehicles as they can fit in their backyard, as long as they have more than a half acre and they fence it and there's a list of major roads that if they have frontage on.
So there's 2 parts to this as I see it. The one is, at some point, you become more than a home-based business, and you probably shouldn't be in a home.
Right.
What point is that? Well, I'm not gonna say that a second vehicle constitutes that, but it could, depending on the vehicle. If you're a big rig driver, your first big rig's an imposition for some neighbors, the second one's definitely gonna be an imposition. If you're a construction, person and you've got several, backhoe, all those things, excavator, bulldozer, whatever, you got that much stuff, you're probably an imposition, and you're affecting more than just your lot. So, I don't know. I mean,
It's a tough one.
if your business is home inspection and you just have a delivery van or a regular pickup truck that you can put in your garage, I don't care if they put it in a garage.
Right now, the major distinction is the weight of the vehicle. So if it's a 10,000 pound gross vehicle weight, you
And
can
what
have
about trailers?
one.
Because some of these people have a trailer that's as big as a vehicle, and some of them have trailers that you don't even notice.
Jordy?
So it's the combined.
So-
It's both.
I think both of these are wrong. I think one of them is too lenient. I don't think, to echo your statement, that as long as you have enough space you can park as many vehicles as you want. I don't agree with that. But at the same time, I do want to encourage people to have food trucks, and maybe 2 food trucks. And I think that is a home-based business that should be allowed. So I don't think they should be able to park on the street. I think they should need to have a place, if they want to put it on their RV pad, and possibly if they have a trailer as well, I'm good with that. But I agree that once you start getting in excess of, 2 to 3 to 4 large vehicles, we're kind of crossing a boundary. But I do want to be friendly to business. I love food trucks, I'm not gonna lie. They are awesome. And I would like more food trucks in Syracuse, because I think it's a good way for someone to go out and do something they love. And so I think we need to strike a middle ground here, where it's not as many as they want, but I'd like it scalable with acreage. If you have a 1 acre, maybe you can have two, three, something like that. If you're on a 1/4 of an acre, it probably is just 1.
Yeah, so I think
That makes sense.
that's kind of where I was going to go with this, and that is that we take the lenient option, and on B, section B, we say it says additional home occupation vehicles, and we limit that. Probably by acreage. I'm not sure that's the right way, but it could
I
be
think
like
acreage
one
and fencing.
one additional per half
Yes.
acre or something like that. And fencing, all that's in there. All that's
Yeah.
in there,
Yeah.
but put a number on it.
But I think we have to limit it by type too.
Yeah,
I
'cause
mean,
if
a
you're
food
talking
truck-
semi-truck.
You're right, 2 food trucks is different than guys 6 stretch limos, or a guy that has 2 semi-trucks is different.
Corinne?
Yeah.
I don't think semi-trucks are okay under any circumstance.
I
They exist
agree
in the
that we need
city.
to be friendly to businesses, because like
Yes, it
80%
depends.
of businesses in Syracuse are home-based businesses. That's no joke for our taxes
And I agree.
and being friendly to that. I think that having it based on acreage is a good idea. My next door neighbor growing up, they had an 1.25 acres, just like my parents did. And he was an excavator, had a backhoe and a dump truck and a tractor. And we were grateful because he pulled out a lot of trees for us and shoveled our walk with his tractor and all sorts of things. I mean, it can be done right. It can be,
Yep.
if it's not an impedance to your neighbors, like what parking in the street could be, then we should consider it.
Yeah.
Lisa, can you weigh on this?
I agree with Corinne and what's being said here. I like the scalable idea that we can say, maybe we can give a weight or a size in accordance to, like, how much of their property can be used for vehicle storage. I don't know. I don't like when we get into too many details of you have to have this many trees surrounding it and this much forestry, and because that's what we've got on some of this. It says your shrubs have to be this high, and that's just not fair. You can't say how long it takes for shrubs to grow either. So I think we can't get so restrictive that we make it so they can't even have the possibility of doing it when they need it.
One option, so elsewhere in our code, we have a distinction between food carts and food trucks. And the food truck could be the actual truck, but it could also be a trailer that a person stands inside of to serve and cook food. So if you wanted to make another distinction, it's quite a big size difference. So if you have issues with the large
Good point.
trailers, then you could call those food trucks, and that's the same as a large other truck. But you can also have food carts, which are quite a bit smaller and less of an imposition. We already have that definition in our code that we borrowed from the state.
I'm good with that, but I do think, if once you're getting into semis and things like that, you need to have a lot of space and it needs to be out of sight. I mean, or at least, I think before you're getting to the 20,000, whatever, I think that's where you're getting into, you need like an acre or something like that to park it off the street.
Semi trucks are more than 20,000 pounds.
Whatever the 20,000 pound one is.
Noah,
So-
do you have enough information that you can bring us?
Yeah.
someday?
I'll try to strike a middle ground and come back to a work session.
Okay.
Sound good?
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's move on to 6.
Okay, R1 cluster. We took this to Planning Commission, and the language provided in the packet is what they came up with. They didn't really change much. They basically made the cluster a standalone zone, and they allowed densities the same, they allowed lot sizes the same. The only thing that changed is the process to get it. It's instead of a conditional use permit, which is basically an approved use with conditions, they'd be required to apply for a zone change, which is a legislative decision. Because it wasn't a zone, it didn't have a list of permitted uses, so we had to kind of hash out what the permitted uses would be. We started with the A1 zones list and kind of added and took a few things off there.
Simplified the math.
Simplified it, yeah. We just tried to clean it up a little bit, and that's what we have.
Mayor,
Yes.
just some thoughts on this. I do agree with removing this from the R1. I do have to caution our council though that if we do that, then they can apply for this in any location, not just R1. So just know that we get one benefit with it being removed from the R1, but it can be applied for anywhere. So just a thought.
It's true.
But if I read this correctly, it always requires council approval.
Yeah, it's a zone change.
So, all right.
Anytime it does.
Yep.
But it can be applied for if it's R2 or R3.
It's true. I think I'm comfortable with
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Do we have consensus?
I'm good with the whole
You
thing.
good with
Yeah.
the whole thing? Gran, you good with this?
Yes.
Consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Sure. Excuse me. Sorry.
Right. Thank you. Thanks, Noah.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time and your work. Steve, you ready to talk budget?
All right. So I placed in the packet about 10 days ago all the budget documents for your review. And then on our factual summation, I want to go over some big ticket items. I wanted to start out first, though, if you guys had any questions on the draft budgets that you had a chance to hopefully review.
So, based on the fact that we're going to do this over multiple nights, I've not gotten through all of them yet. And I apologize because
I had a long flight. I got all of them.
you got all of them. I have not read all of them yet. So
You
I
stay
may
awake.
still come up with more.
My flight, I had time to take a nap and read them all.
You did? And watch a movie?
Watch them.
I read them all on the plane too.
Were there
I haven't
any
had any
specific questions you guys
Yeah,
have at this
well,
point in time?
talk about the proposed museum employee.
Brody, do you want to talk that one or Steve? Which one?
Yeah, I can talk to that. You talking about the RAP tax budget?
Yes.
Okay, so if you recall, we discussed this a little bit at the budget retreat. There wasn't a strong consensus necessarily on a RAP tax policy, but you did discuss kind of entertaining proposals and discussing them possibly in conjunction with formulating the budget. at the last meeting, the last work session, the members from the museum board came and talked to you about some issues and some plans that they, that they would like to do, and the request associated funding. One thing that I have been working on with them since then is to put together a 5-year plan for the museum, and their foundation have been working on that. I don't know if there's members from the museum board here tonight in the meeting or not. But,
They're not here.
Okay. But these requests, as you talked about, was for a part-time curator at 9 hours a week. What they want to do, especially with the splash pad opening, they want to expand their hours of operation and really kind of bring the museum back to life. That they are literally dying off, members of the foundation. And so the other museums have put part-time curators in place, and it's helped out a lot. The other funding request they have was for the software upgrade and the annual maintenance for that software, and that's for the basically the database side of maintaining all of the museum objects.
Did we get the price confirmed on that? Because when they listed it in the meeting, it seemed odd that it was like really cheap up front, and then the annual fee was like thousands of dollars. It seemed something was off.
For the software? Or
yeah, and the reason for I think for the small upfront cost was they're like it was kind of weird. They're like 2 or 3 versions behind. And in order to get up to the online, I guess maybe it's a web-based version, they or whatever version they're using nowadays for that software, they needed this one upgrade first. So I think the annual fee was going to be the only cost associated with it. The only reason there's that upfront fee is because they had to upgrade from 3 versions behind.
I think it's a
So
subscription
you're
service.
saying this is an upgrade rather than a new purchase?
Yeah, they already
Well, they're
have
converting to a software as a service instead of a license-based service.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And so the proposal for these things is coming out of the wrap tax?
That's the proposal.
Yeah, I have a hard time. Well, I don't have a hard time putting the service, the database. I have a hard time putting people in the paying for employees out of the wrap tax.
Well, my issue is paying an annual subscription out of wrap tax because
it won't
the wrap
always
tax
be
ends.
Maintenance issue, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess those are I was okay with a person for a while, but the same thing.
Same
It's the same
thing, that
argument
person
is wrap tax ends. So if the wrap tax ends, we either have to find a new source
Or fire them.
Or fire them.
And I don't
How
like
long does the
that.
wrap tax go?
10
years, and
10
we're
years.
How
down.
many years are we into it?
One.
Yeah, and,
Oh.
and again, to that end, I mean, it is, this is 9 hours a week. I don't know that you're necessarily,
No.
if that scenario were to come to pass, you're not necessarily eliminating, someone's career or anything like that.
Agree.
Well, and logically, I'd be more comfortable if we were augmenting somebody that we already have's job to full time, or, that they maybe split their time. And I think sure, when it comes to benefits, you don't want them to be full time if part time works, but overall, I'm just more concerned that it's hard to keep somebody whose job is 9 hours a week. It's not hard to keep somebody who actually gets enough out of their job that they could be sustainable.
Unfortunately, their need was because people were dying.
Well,
I understand that.
So his point is that do we have someone that we could move into a full-time role?
Who's maybe part time now.
It would be more expensive,
But they
Because
would be
you're-
more permanent, and because we're talking about training this person on a software product and on a database of history, which is a lot of mental work. I don't want them turning over every, quarter or.
Yeah.
Turnover would
So-
be a training nightmare for this job.
We could look into that. We'd have to check the costs. Steve, maybe ask Steve to run some numbers on what that would be. We'd have to find someone that can match up the skill set that they're looking
Right.
for. But I think the bigger question for tonight, if you're okay with the number, then we can look at how we do it. Because it does depend on who we have on staff already, if that's even an option.
Yeah.
I think the number that's proposed is comfortable to me.
Me too.
Coming out of the wrap tax, I'm not quite sure about. I could probably support doing the wrap tax to get this
it's
person
on
on board for year one,
It's on.
and then trying to move it into our general fund.
It's okay.
Corinne?
I think we need to tackle getting somebody hired. I mean, obviously, we don't want to lose our museum. That's, we talk about the heritage of Syracuse and what it's supposed to be, and that's part of it. So the question is year one, yes, but can we make it work in our budget? I think we can too. So year one for wrap tax, I'm comfortable with that, but then stipulate that, hey, we need to make room for this budget next year. Absolutely. I don't think it'll be a problem at all for 9 hours a week.
Dave?
I just don't think we have enough information to give it a call. I think we need to figure out if we're gonna do this with an augmented person. And really, it does need to be done quickly, but Brody, how long do you think it'd take to figure out options here? I mean, could we do it by our next meeting?
I think so.
So based on that, I'd kind of like to come back to it when we have a little more detail.
But this is still for the next fiscal year's budget. We're not trying to get this person on now, right?
I thought we were trying to get somebody hired before.
Right.
No, it could be July.
Oh, really?
So this summer.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Then we've got time.
We have time.
Well, I mean, that's
Well-
You gotta set the budget.
Yeah, we do need to put out a post.
I'm more
right,
comfortable
and
with it not being in the
application.
wrap tax for an employee.
Takes time to hire, doesn't it?
It does.
Lisa?
I'm fine, the numbers look great, and I think we'll probably want to leave it up to the actual museum board right now to see how they wanna hire this. I don't think it's something that we need to figure out for them.
I don't
And-
think I don't think the museum board will be hiring them.
But I mean, saying how they'd like to train them or who
Oh,
they'd like
okay.
to, their pool of possibilities, I think they'll know quite well who, the kind of people they'd like to ask or
I'm
open up
not
the
sure
position
that's
to.
true. I really, what do you think, Brody? I think that they need a lot of help
Legally,
in
we
this
have to-
direction.
You think it'll be us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And I
that
think there's
their
some
their
legality
expertise,
there,
their people skills, bringing this individual on will be a boon to them because it'll bring leadership to the group
Oh,
in some ways.
yeah.
Well,
That's
and
true.
if it's going to be, you talked about full-time, like combining positions for a full-time, that would probably be a Parks and Rec under their purview, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean,
That
So
could
I
end
think-
up being more expensive though, because then we have to provide benefits.
Benefits
as
are
well.
going to be,
We aren't talking about full-time, aren't we?
No,
talking
but
about-
we're talking, so I'm just looking at this also as, we've had problems in Parks and Rec getting seasonal employees.
Mhm.
Maybe if this person has a chance to work through the winter in the museum, that could help us maybe fill out something that's longer. I don't know. I'm trying to be creative with how we solve more than one problem.
It could help like a college student, but then you can have a turnover probably
Yeah,
after 4
that's,
years.
that's a good, I don't know.
Well, anyway, I'm fine with the amount, and we have till July if we want to look for another place to fund it from. But with us only being a year into the wrap tax, we could say in the next year we'd like to figure out where that's going to come from rather than have it come out of wrap.
Okay, what I'm hearing you saying stays in the budget. We may not know where we're funding it quite.
That's my.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I was
Yes.
saying.
Okay.
So that was the biggest new thing that jumped out at me. And then the second, it's not new, but now that we've got some numbers behind it, is of course the parks maintenance
The
facility.
mix facility.
Okay.
which we're gonna discuss, right?
Well, let's jump there. Let's jump there if you guys don't have any other questions on just general budget items.
That one's huge.
So I put a few scenarios. They're basically like top end, bottom end, right? We're probably somewhere in between, but our initial estimates are anywhere from $1.5 to $2 million on a facility. And so in here we have a couple scenarios on if we don't pay down anything at the beginning, what the cost would be in a park maintenance utility fee increase over a 10-year period of time. That range was $1.73 to $2.30. We talked about also there's some options that we can find some cash to help pay down so we don't take out as much debt or on the loan. One of which is the potential to sell one of our cell tower future lease payments for $475,000. I don't know how much we've talked about that. We do have 5 different cell towers in the city. This will be one of the 5. You know, the lease is over the next 20 to 30 years, so basically what we're giving up is the annual payments for the next 20 to 30 years for a lump sum payment now. So
But Steve,
that is
you
an
need to
option.
bring up, you and I talked for a few minutes today about the budget, and you brought up something very interesting that I wouldn't have ever considered.
I mentioned to Lisa that we don't know where the technology is going to be in cell towers in 15, 20 years. You know, 5G is coming around, which are more
5G will never
smaller.
make it to Syracuse.
And if that's the case, that kills that argument.
So the reason I say that is because I'm gonna go engineer on you, but it's a millimeter bandwidth, which has a very limited range. The studies they've been doing on 5G on a lot of the areas is simply closing a door will block 5G, and so
Wow.
there's no.
Why are
they
they
say,
even messing with it then?
well, it's good if you're in a very high density area. For cities, it's a no-brainer. You can put enough amplification, you can mitigate that, but it's not going to have a range of a 4G signal that we have now.
So I was having a similar conversation with Cresta today, and I said, you know, on the one hand, you never know what technology is going to change, and maybe cell towers would be obsolete, and we're getting out ahead of the game. But on the other hand, whenever you're dealing with business and there's long-term payments going on and on, you really sell yourself short. So there's a risk on both sides.
There is.
I'll
be the
it's a
first to
good
admit
point,
that,
but
too.
it's a risk.
What's the dollar trade-off?
Exactly, that's my question.
So 20 to 30
Depends on
years.
how long the technology lasts.
Assuming it lasts.
It's around
Well,
550
let's say
to
we were still paying the
600,000
same
over
amount
30 years.
for 20 years.
So it's between
So you're-
100 to 150,000 we'd be losing out on over the course of the time. But it would save us how much? I mean, we have to build this, and otherwise we're gonna. It looks like our options are gonna be to bond it.
So here's my thinking on this. If we go for it because we decide that the technology, we're going to take the risk that the technology won't last and the money won't be there forever on cell towers, then what stops us from selling more than one and paying a bigger chunk of this and getting rid of it? Or selling 2 or 3 and paying for the whole thing? But I'm not saying I'm just saying if that's the decision, that we're going to risk, that we're going to say cell towers are not a long-term sustainability for the city, then make it do the most good. If it's, go ahead.
Mayor.
Yes, Brody.
So I can give some color to that. When we put together this draft budget, after we discussed it with all the department heads, you know, based on the initial request and things that the department heads, you know, when they look at what they feel they need for the next year, in total we came out, it was actually over $50,000 in budget. So we were over 50,000 in our initial draft of the budget, and so we had to go back in and cut out about, you know, $50,000 plus out of the budget. If we were to sell all 5 leases, we would have to actually go back and figure out what else we're going to cut at, you know, $25,000 per cell tower per year. That adds up.
Okay.
You know, if anything, I would say, if you are gonna roll the dice against, technology, then, I would say at most you do maybe 2 right now, because, I honestly don't know where you would find, the money in the general fund without, cutting into services.
I'm not ready to sell any towers.
No towers?
Why?
See, I wouldn't,
Rather-
I wouldn't
Sell
wanna
one.
do all, cause I feel like we're putting all our eggs in one basket,
Yeah.
but I could do one.
I could do one to help build this, cause it has to keep the burden off of other areas, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, so I've been kind of back and forth here, but after what you just said, I'm more concerned that our budget is dependent on cell towers. That's an unsustainable resource, because we don't know how long that lasts.
So we hope something
Yeah.
else comes up.
I mean,
Well,
let's
we
say
have,
that.
we have long-term leases in place, and there's, for the foreseeable future, we'll need cell towers, but yeah, that's just where we are.
In that case, I'm not real comfortable selling one.
Yeah. There's a lot of uncertainty in technology, but the one thing that is certain is we need a park maintenance facility.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
again, we're trying to throw
too.
all options at you, and not saying any of these options like it's all or none. This
Saying
is
that we're
pick what you
saying that
want.
we have decided that we're dependent on cell towers makes me not want to part with one. That has nothing to do with, I'm not saying I don't want a park maintenance facility, I'm just saying
Right.
that may not be the avenue.
Can we offload some linear park?
What can I get for the
tried.
linear park?
There are two other options on this list. One of which is surplus. We talked about before, the 150,000 from the budget retreat, and our general fund balance is at 20.6%. So another option is you can draw that down to 18. That's another 250,000. You could do some of these, none of these, all of these. I was trying to give you a range on the high end to the low end. So it sounds like we'd probably be somewhere in between the $1.73 or the 72 cents. Yes.
If we draw that fund down to 18%, what monetarily does that add up to be?
Around $250,000.
They're in the packet. Scenario 1, scenario 2.
So say the facility ends up being $1.5 million, you're going to be somewhere in the range of $1.73 or 72 cents, somewhere in there. If you decide not to do everything on that list, you're probably in the $1.15 range.
Okay, so as long as we're talking about fees, we have to keep in mind we still have other things that we have to address, like the ongoing taxation the state's put on us for. We're going to get hit even harder this year on our sales tax, aren't we?
That was calculated in with our truth in taxation last year, so the drop
Oh, it
in sales
was.
tax was offset with our property tax increase, and that's why
Okay.
we had done it.
I thought we were going to face it yet again. Because I don't like that idea of having to come up with such a huge number every year.
Yeah, since we did the bump to the
It's built
rate,
into your
it's-
base going
It'll stay
forward.
there.
It's
Yeah.
staying, yeah.
So whatever we do, the end goal here for me is to keep the fee hike something what I would consider reasonable, which I would put at $1 or less.
To add that to a city bill?
Yeah. So 72 is in scenario 2, right? That's if the building costs $1.5 million.
Correct.
And $1.73 is too high for me, which is in scenario 1. So I think there needs to be some combination of the surplus, the general fund, maybe the cell tower.
So one thing we haven't discussed, and this is something that we already talked about a second ago, is so we are changing the level of service of parks.
Yeah.
So by definition, that fee is going to change as well. So with the additional acreage that we are now counting on our level of service, has anyone made a calculation of what that fee will increase to? because that's gonna happen, if we accept this plan, we're accepting the level of service, which means by definition, our fee increases.
Impact
It
fee,
doesn't, not
the,
immediately.
not the park maintenance.
Can it?
Well, the park maintenance fee, the park maintenance fee changes, right?
I don't, not.
No, the
No,
impact.
it's just the impact fee?
No,
The
because
impact.
It probably
it's
should,
Okay.
Yeah,
Jordan.
probably
But,
should.
no, that's a good
Probably
point,
should.
is
Yeah.
it probably, it justifies that.
Yeah.
So it justifies
Which would be
both.
general fund or park maintenance fee. If you're talking about if you want to maintain the level of service when you add more parks, that's more staffing.
So, because I think there's a bigger issue here, because with that level of service, I think we should adjust our park maintenance fee, and there will be an adjustment for this as well, because more area we're taking care of requires more equipment. So,
Well, and if what we've decided through the park plan research is that we've actually been servicing more than we've accounted for, then the fee is out of whack anyway. We haven't been
I
collecting
don't
for
know.
that.
Yeah, as far as you know,
We haven't
what's
been
been
collecting
happening is
sufficient.
we've been servicing all that property
Without the
Already.
without the income, yeah, and so
Yeah.
that would justify the different rate of cost, because we've actually been bearing that cost somewhere else.
So how
Yeah.
much extra are we planning on garnering?
We have to, I'm not sure
See,
we can
that's the
answer
thing,
that
is
at
we
this
kinda need to
moment.
know.
Yeah, but I'm not sure we can answer it right this second.
because I
But we
think
do need to know.
I think that I think the fee is the right place for this, and I think that it should cover all of these areas, because we don't do stuff to parks because we're constantly saying, well,
We
there's
have
no money for that.
Yeah,
And so the RAP tax is supposed to help add things to parks, but just regular park maintenance, I think we need to look at that, and this is part of park maintenance. So I think the fee is the correct place, and I would say $2.
and I think that people have really spoken and said that parks is a service they want.
Uh-huh.
That
Okay,
that's something that,
Now, I think though being reasonable on the amount, I mean, where this is a one-time purchase, I think I'm comfortable with using some of that extra amount that we have in our
General fund.
general fund.
But this,
I think because it is a one-time purchase, and that would help reduce that cost to our residents.
but it's
I
not
think
a
it makes
one-time
sense.
purchase.
This?
Because this
Make
building
it
is going to require upkeep, it's going to require all the different
I
things that come with
agree.
owning a building, so it's,
But the building of it is the difficult part.
the building is the difficult part. So
So if you're saying $2, then $1.73 of that goes toward a bond payment or a loan payment,
so we're only getting a
and we're getting
quarter
27 cents
it's true.
to put. I
to
mean,
put
that's better
to
than nothing.
parks, which is probably not enough.
I do agree that we're going to need to pull from somewhere else, but at a minimum, we need to, I think the fee needs to be adjusted to both cover the growth in parks, because we have a new linear park coming online that's going to require maintenance. We have several other parks that are in need of some TLC. We have a parks maintenance facility, so I think that needs to be a mix, and I think the fee should bear a good portion of it.
So as a standalone argument, I totally agree with you. But when I look at the bottom line of these other fees that are increasing,
We do need to pull something from somewhere else as well.
It's, I mean, it's gonna be $6.
Mm.
$6 a month.
I think as far as before we know how much that park maintenance fee could be increased, the scenario 2 looks like the better option, because people don't want to have, they say they want parks, but they don't want to pay for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think about my own budget at home, and I think if I had a large expense coming up, I would try to grab from several areas that wouldn't be as painful or as unbalanced. So I still go back to this scenario 2 with the one cell tower to be sold, and as well as the general fund.
So you give up 100,000 to get.
Over 20 years, because we still have 4 others. That's just
How
my
much do we
thought.
get per year on that one cell tower?
25.
25.
So $25,000 $100,000 if you just dedicate that money from you get from that cell tower to.
For 4 years.
So you just, if you just dedicate that $25,000 to this one project, then
Yeah,
suddenly
you
it's
gotta-
paying for it, and then you didn't give up an asset.
Over how much time?
Can we
Well, we just-
specify that in this scenario instead of selling it? Say, okay, for 4 years, this goes here, because it's the same thing as
I
selling
would
it,
say
but
for
then
the,
we have
if we
ongoing
did that,
profit.
it's not a bad idea, I'd say for the life of the loan.
Now,
Of the
granted,
loan.
it's different than a down payment. You'd have to make sure that you could pay extra.
Yeah, you could do
What's
that.
the
The only,
interest rate?
you can't guarantee that future councils will continue it.
That's true.
True.
But they would have to find a new way to fund it then. So you can't sell a building at that point.
You're right, but one way or another, they do have to fund it. If
No
it's-
matter what we do, they'll be cursing this
Yeah,
guy.
they're gonna.
Yeah, they will.
For
So
incurring more
I would be
debt.
more of opinion that we say we dedicate all the funds from that one cell tower to this over the entire 10 years, and over 10 years, that's 250,000. Never do math in public. That's not right.
Yeah, I would need to see the math of the interest that would cost.
It's true, but I doubt it's.
I think financially we get more out of selling it than we get out of keeping it. But
But if we
that
get
doesn't
the
mean
same
I'm really
amount of
excited about
selling.
selling an asset.
I hate to part with assets.
I totally hear you, and I feel the
But-
same.
But I don't understand, because if we sell it for 100,000, we get that in 4 years worth of rent, and then we've got another 6 years of possibly getting.
No, you would
We
sell it
would
for
sell it for
475,000.
475,000, which is a lot more.
475. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a little different. Okay, hello, it's right there.
That's,
Sorry, guys. What were we saying
So-
about don't do math in
That's
public?
So I think it was about 100,000 that we would lose by selling it now than if we kept it the whole time.
And would buying it now save you $100,000 in interest? Is the fundamental
it
question
probably
for
would.
me.
Well, and you also have time value of money as well. You're
It's
talking
true.
about
Yeah.
present dollars versus
That's true.
future dollars.
yeah.
Good
So
point.
give us a
True.
direction.
I don't have a
So-
direction.
I go
I don't
scenario
either.
2.
Brody,
That's my
Scenario
direction.
Brody,
So Mayor, in the packet here, so the cost per year for 10, so the annual payment goes down by 100,000, right? If you sell the lease. And so if you don't sell the lease, you have an extra 100,000 a year that you have to come up with, but you have 25,000 of it to pay for it. So you would use, I guess, the park maintenance fee or something else to come up with the additional 75.
I lost you there.
Which
Okay,
is about
so
the
then I guess
72
what if you
cents
go
a
to
month.
So-
inflation over
So
the
look
course
at-
of those years?
Look at scenario 1. The cost per year, if on the low end, is 175,900, right? That's the cost to pay for the facility. Scenario 2 includes the sale of the cell tower lease, right? So you're doing 475,000 down payment, so that lowers your loan amount.
Right.
And your cost per year for 10 years is 73,500.
Have we calculated the option of not building the Taj Mahal Park Hall and building the bare necessity with an upgrade plan and the cost impact of that?
Well, again, I guess then you're up to.
Building in phases is always more.
It is
Yeah,
more,
it's
but
more, and
when you don't have
and
the money, it's,
we have an increasing economy. I mean, yeah, everything's a crapshoot, right? We don't know what's going to happen. But I even look at what $25,000 is worth to us now, as opposed to what it will mean in 20 years. I mean, it'll probably
No,
be
you're right.
quite diminished.
this is why this is way complicated. This
Yeah.
is not an easy one.
Okay, where I lean, Mayor, is toward option 2,
Me too.
scenario 2, but Jordan brings up a very good
Oh,
point
hey,
about
quit confusing it. Just give us your.
about needing more park. So that 72 covers the building, but I would be comfortable making it an even dollar to have that additional.
I think that may cover the building, but it doesn't cover the deficit that we have right now, and I'd like to really figure out what that deficit is.
Because of what we've been maintaining
because of
and
what we've
not
been maintaining
charging.
without charging, yeah.
Yeah.
So I kinda have to figure out what that number is, because if that made that number $1.15, I would say, well, we gotta do it. If that made it $3, we can't do that.
You're right.
So-
I'm just throwing out an even
Yeah,
number
I
that doesn't
know.
have any science behind it, and there should be some science.
We should get some, okay,
Yeah.
we're on the same page.
Yeah, I agree.
But I gotta figure those things out before I make a final call.
Well, we can talk about that in item 4, because we do have our 5-year Parks Master Plan, or at least our plan for the next 5 years on parks, and most of it is funded either through the park maintenance fee, through capital, or through the RAP tax.
So, I like, just, you didn't ask, I like scenario 1, but with the dedicated option of paying it down using the tower option, tower funds. I think we can pay it off quicker. We will increase the parks a little bit more to buy it down faster.
Every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like option 1 with keeping the tower, but dedicating the tower funds to the payment of
Could
that.
you help me, because I'm not an engineer and not nearly as math qualified. If we get 25,000 over the 10 years of the life of the loan, that's still not 475,000. So,
But it's 30, but it's a 30-year lease.
250,000.
right, but we're talking about paying off the building in 10 years. So how do I end up with more money? How do I end up ahead?
Because the lease you're selling is over 20 to 30 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
So
I'm
that-
giving up future funds to pay something off now.
Right.
Am I not doing that in both scenarios?
So now take 25,000 over 30 years. How much
Right.
is that?
That's the 475, which
But
is
our
why
lease
I'm
isn't
saying.
that
That's
long.
more than that.
More than that.
750.
But our lease only goes to 25?
It's somewhere in the range of 20 to 25 years.
So we're looking around 500
Perpetual,
to
for all
550.
intents and purposes.
Yeah, so it's 550,000. So you're giving up 550. Like, admittedly, in whatever dollars it is in the future. So
Right.
there is.
$12, no.
Council, I'm gonna suspend the discussion
Okay.
on the budget in 20 minutes, because we need to have a special session.
I'm sorry, this one takes more,
Yeah.
I can't make a call on this tonight. But, I mean, it's important we're having this discussion, but
I think we all agree we need a park maintenance facility.
yes,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
that's not
I
the
think we're on
question.
consensus there.
So that's the baseline. It's just what do we want to do with? So you're at least the 72 cents. Sounds
Craig,
like
you have
sounds
a-
like the cell tower is not
On the
all
fence.
consensus. So if you took that out and still did the 400,000 from the combined surplus and the spend down of the general fund,
Yes.
then you're at 1.1 million over 10 years, which is pretty close to that column 2 on the 2 million. When you do the pay down, it's 1.125. So you're about $1.30
Right,
if you don't sell the cell tower, roughly.
that's good to know. That's why he gets to do the math in public.
So
Yeah,
can
we'll
you-
let him do math in public.
Can you guys give us a better
Thank you,
idea,
Steve.
you know, in the next meeting, what we may need, if any, to increase the maintenance fee for actual
That's the
maintenance?
element we have to have.
Well, and I think we can talk about that on the next item, because we do have our 5-year park plan,
That's okay.
which most of it is funded if you agree that we're going to use park maintenance, general capital, and RAP tax. So that actually leads into our next discussion. There's a chart there on item 4. It was focused on RAP tax, but I think you can make it a bigger discussion on here are the needs we've identified over the next 5 years for our existing parks.
Those are our big projects.
There's
like,
thousands of little
maintenance
ones.
as in
Okay.
all of our other things, and we don't have.
So we need to know.
There are some items
what
in
the
this
cost is.
plan that I want to talk about moving around, but, or even canceling one.
I have to say, I love that each year you do something that is exciting and something that is kind of boring. But it's all needed, you know? I mean, like, for instance, doing overlay treatment, nobody cares.
Yeah.
But they do appreciate a replacement of playgrounds.
Okay, so I'm gonna say I did agree. I was contacted this week by the just lost the term, the citizen, the community council for Bluff Ridge Elementary, and they were up in arms that we were going to put a pavilion in Bluff Ridge Park. They really do not want that. In fact, they asked if they could put up a fence if we do that. And I don't think we want the fence.
Okay, I heard,
Why?
I was contacted by them that they don't want the fence. It will.
No, they don't want the fence.
Okay.
They don't want the pavilion, and they feel like if the
Okay.
pavilion's there,
Why?
they'd have, their concern, as it was explained to me, and again, this is not me, I'm relaying a message. Their
Sure.
concern is that anything that gets kids away from the school, that would be out and away from their campus, is an opportunity for people to, they said creepy people can hang out and try and lure your kids away from
And see,
campus.
Syracuse Elementary
Yeah.
loves their pavilion.
I'm not, again,
Okay, so mine says they don't want a play structure.
I was told both.
If it's,
Okay.
And I don't
if-
see
if-
play structure in here, so I didn't mention it.
Okay.
But they were,
I was just gonna say, if the pavilion's open view and doesn't have any blocking walls, then it's an open
I'm just
view.
bringing you the message.
Shoot.
They did not want
How
this.
many people have expressed this?
One. Well,
Well, one to me, but I was told that it was the whole council and that they were very up in arms over this.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
my
maybe-
understanding is this is just our standard level of service in all of our parks.
I agree.
Yes.
So
But-
that's why it's here. I don't, if you want to
It
say
is,
more
and
to
I
it,
mean,
but-
in our park master plan, that's what we're shooting for, is that each park would have a pavilion. We took out a play structure because it's so close to the school not to have that, but.
Well, so for me, the issue is, do we listen to our citizens on a one-off? If it's really that, I mean, if it's a one-off for what their wishes are in that area, I would consider it.
so this is for Bluff Ridge Park Pavilion.
Yeah.
I'm okay postponing it. Move something else forward. Well, there's nothing else coming out of impact fee fund.
Let those kids' parents graduate,
Okay, so
and
this,
then
but the
the next
school.
ones will be okay with it.
Yeah, but the school already has a playground. Why are we putting another structure right next to a playground? Do we know
We're not
that?
putting the playground.
There's no playground in here.
No,
Okay,
there's
they have on
pavilion.
here that it was a play structure, so
They
so
have-
just pavilion is
It's a
all that we've
pavilion.
looked at? Okay,
Not a play structure.
okay, so maybe that's
It's
where they
this-
got it.
I asked them to
Mixed up. That's
clarify
what I
if
said.
it was
I didn't
one
hear there was
each
going to
or
be
both.
one.
And they said neither one is acceptable to them.
Okay,
That's what I clarified. I just said, so is it this, that, and they clarified. They said neither one. They were just concerned. And
and I agree, this says their cameras can only monitor the playground area. Their
Yeah.
cameras won't go further out, so they're afraid that kids will get
yes, that's what.
waylaid there, so. Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I-
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
I wonder
There's
if
a lot
the surrounding community would agree with that, but
huh?
I wonder if the surrounding community would agree with that, but
Right. See, that's
It's
the thing,
made
when
up
I
of
was a kid,
parents
there were
of that
lots of places to hide.
And this is ultimately your guys' decision. If you want
Yeah.
to postpone it,
No.
not do it.
I don't want
Again-
to postpone it.
We don't have anything else in impact fee fund, mainly because I think our next big project is
if you
the
want, we
regional
could
park.
we could defund the pavilion and put 80,000 towards a park maintenance facility.
I would be more
Can't use
inclined to
impact
do
fee
that.
for that.
Huh?
Oh.
Currently, we can't use impact fee for that. It's not
Can't
called
use
out. in
impact
our-
fee.
It's not called out. in our
It's
plan.
It has to be.
Or I guess I'd be willing to shuffle things around such that I could find 80,000 to put into the out of say the park maintenance fund and switch something out of park maintenance into that.
Well, and
Well,
I
if we're
would be,
talking about one group of people, that maybe 5 people, does that really represent the entire community around there. I'm just saying, we need to be kind of careful.
Okay, so, yeah,
Who's the representative of that committee?
I don't know, but
There would be it is
There
made up
should
of.
be a chair.
Oh, you mean
There'll
from
be a
us?
chair
From
and
us.
there'll be.
I mean
Liaison.
us.
Oh,
Who's our liaison to Bluff Ridge?
that's me.
I think
Yeah,
it's Lisa,
so that's
yeah.
why they called me.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but what I'm guessing here, and I know what community councils are made up of, and it is a representation of administration and staff of the school,
And teachers.
and then, and few
And
teachers,
parents.
but mostly parents.
mostly parents.
Yeah, but what I think they might not understand is it's a park pavilion rather than a play area. And a pavilion may not attract kids the way they're concerned that a play area would.
Lisa, would you check with them and get a clarification
Yeah.
on that? And
Yep.
let's not get hung up on a line item.
And to be honest, the only way it even matters to me is if they took a vote on it and made that their statement. I shouldn't say that because individuals do matter, but from a community council, I want them to take a vote and say, we don't want it this year.
The only reason I got involved at all is former Councilwoman Anderson called me while she was in the meeting and said, I want some clarification. And I said, I don't know, how does your council feel? And she started giving me the play-by-play, or texting me the play-by-play on this, and said they really don't want it. The principal doesn't want it. The parents are up in arms over it. I told her I would relay the message.
I have
My kids don't go there. I don't have an association there. It's not my issue.
I'd be happy to put that into the founder's parking lot, too.
I'd be happy to put that into these controllers that are gonna save us a ton by getting our parks online. That's probably gonna save us more in manpower. It's
I'm fine striking
perpetual.
it for now.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
All
you guys
those
want.
options are not impact fee eligible.
Yeah.
Well, they are, 'cause they're right here, controllers for
Killjoy.
irrigation controllers, they're on the list.
Not under impact.
But if you look
There's
at the top-
different fee and funds. that
What
we
can you
offer.
do with an impact fee?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Expansion, new
Question,
parks.
council, we're gonna move on in 10 minutes.
What's that?
Because we,
Is there anything else
needs to
we
be on the
need
ISO.
to discuss?
other items from the
Only
budget that
equipment,
we
it
need to
can't be
discuss.
maintenance or.
So let me throw out some options, and these are some hard decisions, and we probably want Krista and Chad to weigh in.
Founders
So
Park East.
in our spreadsheet here, we have from the general fund, we have 80,000 for Founders Park parking lot.
So what does that
Um,
entail?
That's a partial
that-
too.
That's the west parking lot over by the bathrooms.
Okay.
That's central.
And
Where most people
that's
park.
basically a reconstruction, right, Krista?
Mhm.
So
It's
that's
actually
curb and
150.
gutter
It's actually
and.
150.
It's a
We-
split between two funds.
And it could be possibly more than that. That was just I think Mathis gave us.
Does that include the road going out?
So
No.
it's not curb and gutter, it would just be removing the asphalt that's there, stabilizing the base to make sure there's not soft spots, and then rebuilding asphalt.
I don't want to do that. I would actually prefer to actually do
Curb and gutter.
curb and gutter. I want to make, I mean, right now, this is our premier park.
Mhm.
This is all we've got right now. And until
So-
we,
So you put that 80,000 there?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah,
So that
We prefer
project,
that. We would prefer that.
the total price is actually 150,000, because we were scheduling 70,000 out of RAP tax.
Okay.
But,
So we could
You
take
could
the
do-
whole 80 and 80 and put the RAP tax somewhere else.
yeah.
Well, and I would
You could
even save it.
you could delay
It could
that a
be more
year.
than that with the curb and gutter. It could
Mhm.
maybe, it could be.
But
Let's
more.
do it right, though.
I would rather
Oh, I
do-
agree.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. I would do that, I'd go for that.
You could delay the
But even if it was less, could
the
do the rest of the
irrigation
renovation,
pumps.
which would be fabulous.
So I think
So-
we have consensus on this idea.
Mm-hmm.
So you could take, there's 22,000 for the Linda Vista Central Controller. I know, Chad probably doesn't like that, but we could sacrifice for that and put it towards the facility. It
That's not-
depends on which one you want, more.
Yeah, they're both parks. It's good.
So there's, you know, there's another, so there's 100,000 right
Robbing
there.
Peter to pay Paul.
It's what we do every year.
I mean, you know, I'm just throwing out, you know, options of where we could, you know, grab pennies to pay for this thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to dig too deep into a 5-year plan that's a pretty good plan. So I mean, I don't want to start pulling too many pieces out of that and get behind.
Yeah,
So
well,
can we, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I mean, the part, the one in yellow is on the top of the list. That's that's on the 5-year plan, but there's no funding for it.
That's true.
So we're just trying to shuffle it around
Okay.
as an option.
Well, I hear consensus of curb and gutter in Founder's Park.
And well, and
Yeah.
using the 80,000 for that is,
Pull
I
the
think,
80 out of the Bluff Ridge Park Pavilion.
and put it towards this to do it right, get it done.
Can we do curb and gutter with that impact?
No, I think didn't we just figure out what we could do, that we could move funds?
Yeah, you could make this 80,000 go over into the Founders Park East Pavilion, and then take that 80,000 out of the wrap tax and move it into the park or the
But
curb
we're
and gutter.
saying it might be more, it'll cost the 150 already to do the Founders Park
Here's-
without curb and gutter, so it may end up taking that full 80 to finish it up.
Here's the other complexity. The East Pavilion was there once upon a time, so we can't use impact for that either because we're replacing a pavilion that was already there.
An existing structure, or was existing.
Doesn't look existing.
It's
Yeah, basically what you'd have to do is eliminate the Founders Park East Pavilion. Because you can move that 80,000 to do the curb and gutter.
Well, I think we are kind of eliminating that because we don't know what that parking lot over there is going to be, because you guys haven't decided.
Right.
What that's
I
gonna
agree with
happen,
that, 100%.
because we don't know what all that trading is gonna be.
We don't want to
Right.
wheel and deal and then tear it back down.
Right.
So
that's
I
what
mean,
we're waiting on.
really what we're doing, this is a priority decision, right?
Yeah.
So we can move that money towards the maintenance facility, or we can move that money towards the parking lot.
Maintenance facility, it's more of a need than curb and gutter.
But I don't want to just redo something that was done. I don't know who did. I don't think you did it, but don't take
No.
offense. It was done poorly the first time. Why do we just keep doing something poorly in perpetuity?
Yeah.
I mean, what we need to
Well,
do is
except
just
for
give
the
you a
fact
bid,
that if
find
it's
out what's
functioning
going
and
on.
works,
Find out
and
what
our
we're doing.
park maintenance facility is not working,
I would argue that it's not working very
It
well.
has to be replaced more often because it wasn't done correctly.
What are the
Well,
problems with it?
what I'm suggesting is, what if you don't do it at all this year? Are we not okay with that?
yeah.
Because you can actually take the 150,000 for whatever we have left in wrap tax and the 80,000, put it to your park maintenance facility.
I would rather do Founders right if we're going to do it at all.
But he's suggesting, what if we don't do it at all
This year.
this year
Do
and
it
put
next
it
year
and try to
right.
get us into the, oh,
How does it look?
Which we don't have to make a decision tonight. I mean, we can.
good.
We can talk about this in future meetings. It sounds like we're kind of.
How fast can we sell off that cemetery land, the extra stuff?
That's just gotta go back into park development.
I know. This is
Any
fun.
other?
This is park development.
Well,
Can we
yeah,
move
I don't
on?
think there's any restrictions on that cemetery land.
Yeah, that's,
It depends on how we acquired it.
Right.
There's
But
emotional
if-
restrictions on it.
We may not have any restrictions on where it goes.
okay. So
They could go parks to parks too, yeah.
Yeah.
Any more questions on budget general?
no,
I'm good to move on
I
for
thought
now.
overall.
Let's be
Yeah.
done tonight.
It's exhausting.
I'll skip the rate increase, or rate discussion.
The what's
Thanks.
discussed?
The,
Original part?
the rates changes.
Utility rates.
Good, because
enterprise
that's more than I wanted.
And if you have, and if you have questions, get with Steve, will you, before on the 14th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve, Steve. Okay. I'm going to open this back up for public comment. Is there any more of the public that are here? Ralph?
Once again, I'm the only member of the public here for the bitter end of your wonderful meeting.
Thanks, Ralph.
Is it really that bitter?
Well, I noticed that some of you were not facing the distinguished council member that is not in the room, to see what she looked like on the screen and to watch the expression on her face when she's looking at some of you through the back of your head, making some of your comments.
It's more bitter than I thought.
Mr. Savage.
Oh.
Are you making bad faces at me, Corinne?
Okay, let's let Ralph make his public comment.
No,
Mayor,
I'm not making
members
bad
of the
faces at
council,
anyone today, thank
and
you.
staff, my name is Ralph Bond. Our recorder is making an official record of this. A couple quick points. No other city in the county for their home-based businesses determines anything about that business for multi-vehicles by lot size. No other city bases their home business license allows employees on site either to work on site or to come onto the site and pick up a vehicle and drive elsewhere. None, zero. That's currently the way we are too. All other cities in the county do base their food trucks specifically named food trucks to a maximum of 1 truck and 1 trailer. Some of them only limit it to 1 truck. Let's see, that's for that, and let's see. In our particular city, in as much as it's come up and we all know who it is, that particular business does have a business license for their portable trucks, but they do not have a license for their second business, which is on site, which is a commercial kitchen, where they offer services to other food trucks that come in to replenish their trucks. Yes, they do have a Davis County Health license, and this commercial kitchen does require a fire inspector to inspect their facility to make sure it meets codes. And the last time I spoke with our fire marshal, he had not visited that facility because he didn't know that they were commercial kitchen operating at that facility. And the business that their client base is other food trucks, so we have other food trucks visiting this facility and spending hours, sometimes an entire day, on site, even though they're not part of that business. And lastly, totally different subject, cell tower. If you build your water tower, you may have a 200-foot high platform up in the sky for a cell tower. Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for having my back turned to you, but I thought it was important to pay attention to Corinne up there.
I was admiring your very lovely shirt.
Oh.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, we have one other item for work session, and then I would take a motion that we move into a special session. This last item on here is a review of adjustments to the city council meeting agendas and staff reports. I've been discussing an option with Brody and with Paul and with Cassie about how we conduct these meetings, hoping that I can become more efficient. This is for me, it's not for you particularly, but in helping to design a system that will help me manage the meetings, and that we get to a point where we're more efficient with the use of our time, and we don't spend a lot of time in the woods chasing squirrels. And so this is what I'm directing staff to do when they create their cover sheets for the packet that comes out. I'm asking them to put on the very top line of that what the particular project is, or whatever we're going to discuss, in very succinct terms, so you know what we're going to talk about at that time period. I'm also going to ask them to, at the bottom of that sheet, to not to not, I don't want the staff, and I want them to listen carefully, directing the council on what we're gonna do. What I really want to have happen though is for the staff to tell me, as the moderator of the meeting, what needs to come out of that meeting so I can help get it here. You know, for example, if there is a question, if we have a question, for example, like on the splash pad, that I'm going to ask Cresta to give me an end goal. Tell me at the end of our discussion, what decision do you want the council to have made by the end of this meeting, up or down, or how do you want them to proceed? To give me a directive so that I'll listen for that direction. It's very wonderful for me to see you work together, and on several issues tonight we've come to concession, and we can put that on and that saves time into a regular meeting. The other thing I'm going to ask us to do is that I know how frustrating it is sometimes to be in a setting where you have prepared a presentation to present to the public, and all of us have done that. And I'm going to ask that we allow, and in a very short time period, for the staff to do a presentation on what it is we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the splash pad. We'll ask Krista to put together a very succinct presentation on what it is that she needs direction on, and I'm going to ask that we don't interrupt her, that we listen to her presentation from beginning to end before we ask any questions, unless there needs to be questions asked to further define for you what it is that she's asking for. But questions about or comments about, well, I don't think that's going to work, or any debate on that issue until she has finished, so that she has, or whoever the staff member is that's presenting, has the time to lay out for us what the question is that we need to act on. So I'm going to ask that we don't interrupt during that time period, except for if you need to ask a question because for understanding. Stephen R. Covey, in his habits of seven habits for successful leadership, says seek first to understand before you seek to be understood. And that's what we're doing. Is I'd like us to make sure that we allow the staff to present everything that they have prepared for that, so that we have that whole thing. And then what I'm going to ask Cassie to do is, on a rotating basis, put one of your names in a rotating basis on that sheet to start a discussion. So let's say we're talking about the splash pad. It makes sense that either Dave or Jordan, because they've been working on that, would lead that discussion out for the council. But what I'm going to ask that is that we rotate around in that circle who begins the discussion on that. And that will be on the agenda, so that you can see that when we get to a discussion on septic tanks, whatever it is the discussion is about, and Lisa is assigned to lead out the discussion, then Lisa can be in a situation where she's prepared to lead out on that discussion. So you'll see in our meeting on the 14th that change in format of the meeting. Also, there'll be again like we've had tonight, some time constraints so that we can use the economy of the meeting. We've accomplished a lot tonight. It's 9:30. I think we can be out of here by 10. We do need to hold a special meeting because we need to have a closed session. So we've put together a special meeting. I'd entertain a motion for us to go into that special meeting at this time.
I move that we go into special meeting. Oh,
Okay.
do you want
Can
to
I-
discuss?
One thing that we did not get a chance to do, can I make a request for a future agenda item?
Yes.
Okay, so I was approached by a member of a member forming a nonprofit organization that might like to use that nonprofit organization to improve our parks. Could I ask that that person be given a spot on a future agenda?
Yes, would you like it in a work session, probably?
A work session and preferably the June, because he's
Okay.
tied up in May. Is that okay?
Cassie, could you put that on the agenda?
Okay.
Done?
Can I make a recommendation as well?
Yes.
The CERT class is finished.
Yes.
Can I get the CERT recognition on the May agenda?
On the 14th?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
On the
Cassie,
business
will you
meeting?
put that on the 14th?
And-
Okay.
Will you send me details about that
Mhm.
request?
I will. The next request I have is, can we put on a future meeting discussion of what the city can and can't do to support future scout troops in the city with maybe facility use?
Okay.
So we just need to know what that, because they've asked me, you assigned me that, they've asked me to get back to them.
Okay. Work session again?
That's either is fine.
With that discretion, then can we look at the upcoming business meeting?
Yeah.
And see if we have room for that?
If you
But
do,
we'll
that
have-
would be fine.
We'll have it either in the business session or in the work session. Corinne, you had something you want?
Yes. Well, just like we had requested before about the home occupation discussion, I'd like to do that.
Yes.
And then also, Parks Committee assignments. You could put that on
Yes,
there too.
that is on the agenda for the business meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Corinne and Lisa asked for, you remember the fellow who addressed us in our last meeting about a bakery on his, she would like to discuss that as a council
Okay.
in a setting. But because she was in Hawaii, she felt like it would be better if she were here. So
Thanks, guys.
I counseled with both of them, and they agreed to remove it from tonight's agenda. Okay. I have a motion before us to go into to convene in a special meeting.
Second.
From Lisa. Have a second from Jordan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're now.
Really quick.
We actually have minutes
Oh,
on
never
the
mind.
agenda too.
Just a question of, do we want to put, now that we've already had about approved minutes or not?
Yes, I'm
That's
getting
the
there.
next meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Because
Okay.
I'm just, we've just convened the meeting, we're ready to go, we'll follow the agenda. Okay. We are now in special session. We'll approach item number 2 on the special session approval of the minutes, okay? Council, we have minutes for the regular meeting held on March 12th, 2019, special redevelopment agency RDA meeting held on March 12th of 2019, and the work session held session of March 12th. You've had a chance to review those. Are there any corrections?
I'll move that we approve said minutes.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a second by Councilwoman Bingham. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, that passes unanimously. Take a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second? I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that was unanimous. We're now in closed session. We'll-
See you then.
See you guys.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Was it here?
All right.